Chapter 551, Good that came with the bad. The power inside his hand was furiously growing at a rate multiple times compared to before. The power whirlpool seemed to be expanding at a visible rate. The increasing power caused the presence of the whirlpool to become even more terrifying. The ferocity of the power collisions was rapidly increasing. The waves of power pushed outward and caused this compressed whirlpool of power to become even more chaotic. No wonder Zhuomo's expression changed. If the rate continued to increase like this, even the 10,000-layer iron Kaore would not be able to tolerate the power whirlpool inside his hand for very long. Zhuomo had never expected that guiding the power flows into his hand would cause their rate of growth to increase so greatly. This also meant that the time Zhuomo had left had shrunk dramatically. Zhuomo's expression became stern. He reflexively moved his body. He was slightly unaccustomed to this empty body. Suddenly, he had an idea. If he could pull out and process power from his hand and move it into his body. He did it as he thought about it. He tried to pull out a small amount of power from the power whirlpool in his palm. However, what depressed him was that no matter if he used spells, Yao arts, or Mo skills, he was unable to obtain one thread of power from the power whirlpool. The power whirlpool spun at a high speed and all the chaotic power flows were tightly sucked into the power whirlpool. Zhuomo was not demotivated. He patiently pondered it. As he thought, he suddenly found that each of the chaotic flows in the power whirlpool were usually 3 powers tangled together, and it was very difficult to extract just one power. 3 powers tangled together? Wasn't that just Shin power? Zhuomo's eyes suddenly lit up. The power whirlpool seemed to suddenly slow down. Those chaotic power flows magnified in front of his eyes and gradually became clear. When the 3 powers merged, it was Shen power. Zhuomo murmured to himself as he stared unblinkingly. Suddenly, he moved into a strange posture, the beginning position for Shen power cultivation that was recorded on the golden leaf. Almost the instant he got into position, a thread of gold light floated out of the power whirlpool. Zhuomo's mind was completely clear. Without any pause, he moved through the following positions. Gold threads continued to flow out of the power whirlpool. These threads did not seem to be affected by the suction of the whirlpool at all. These golden threads were as thin as hair as they slowly floated in the air above the whirlpool. This was Shin power. At this time, the ray of soul-setting divine light inside Zhuomo's body suddenly lit up. The Shin power threads that were flowing suddenly stopped. With a flash of the divine light, the Shen power seemed to be pulled by an unseen force, suddenly breaking out of the attraction to the whirlpool and flowing from the middle of his palm into his arm. These hair-thin Shen power strands quickly merged into Zhuomo's body when they left his palm. A feeling of swelling power rose. It was as though his parched body had suddenly become replenished by the rain. Every bit of his blood and flesh was greedily absorbing these strands of Shen power. The moves that had been raw before seemed to have merged into Zhuomo's bones. His movements flowed and felt simple yet enlightened. Threads of Shin power continuously flew out of Zhuomo's palm into every part of Zhuomo's body. The soul-setting divine light dimmed and brightened as though it was the lighthouse guiding the ships in the dark. If Zhuomo looked carefully at the soul-setting divine light at this time, he would find to his shock that the soul-setting divine light was much brighter than in the past. Is he actually a genius? Wei suddenly said. His expression was extremely complex. There was shock, disbelief, dazedness, suspicious, but when he said this, his tone was certain. Otherwise, why would I take him as a student? Pu Yao could not disguise the smugness in his expression, but his bloody pupils still exposed his own shock. I'm very curious about his origins now, Wei said lightly. He is able to cultivate the Mo physique, able to cultivate Yao arts, able to cultivate spells, able to cultivate Shin power, able to comprehend the soul-setting divine light. It really is. Wei almost didn't know how to describe it. The smugness on Pu Yao's face retreated and his usual indifference came back. No matter what his birth is my student. Do not be so nervous. Wei smiled slightly. I will not have malicious aims on him. This kind of genius will never lack for enemies. I don't need to increase their numbers, I just anticipate it. A light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil. What do you want to do? Do you remember why we were defeated in the past? Wei smiled slightly, but that smile was without any warmth. What? Mountain Dragon Core, is this embarrassing? And one-eyed Emo Wolf shouted. His gaze was vicious, his face set in a snarl, scars crisscrossed his face and caused him to appear intimidating. In this eminent mountain Jia, this one-eyed Emo Wolf's reputation was feared. He wasn't just the leader of the biggest group of bandits, he was also the boss that was most famous in eminent mountain Jia. Eminent mountain Jia was ruled by bandits. This was a famed home of bandits, and the number of bandit groups were in the thousands. The merchants that passed by didn't dare to travel through this region, and due to the fact there were no large factions in the surroundings, no one came to rid the area of bandits. Over time, eminent mountain Jia became a true den of bandits. They raided in all areas, and all of the business routes in the surroundings were within their raiding area. The more daring bandit groups would even travel to raid places further away. In eminent mountain Jia, there was only one kind of ammo that could survive: bandits. Hearing that someone had come to eminent mountain Jia to show off, the one-eyed Emo Wolf couldn't accept it. Boss, that group is really strong. They probably aren't from an average battalion. There aren't many of them, about 100 and so, the subordinate said cautiously. He had not seen the battle personally, and all the intelligence he had been learned from the lucky survivors of Mountain Dragon Core. Mountain Dragon Core? Those trash. The one-eyed Emo Wolf said disdainfully. They are all cowardly. This kind of trash is an embarrassment to our eminent mountain Jia. The one-eyed Emo clearly was talking as though he was the master of the Jia. Viciousness flashed through his eyes as he snarled, "Even those proper battalions do not dare to come to our territory to make trouble. Just 100 people, such daring. They really think they are something." The subordinate perceptively did not try to urge otherwise. He was clear about his boss' fiery temper. The boss hated matters that lost his face the most. If he was not perceptive, he wouldn't be able to keep his head. "Go. Tell the other corps, he'll give a space to whoever exterminates this group on the next trip out." The one-eyed Emo Wolf narrowed his one eye and said in a deep voice. The subordinate was filled with sympathy towards this group of people that had charged into eminent mountain Jia. They were finished. With boss throwing this prize out, there wouldn't be a speck of these 100 people left. The one-eyed Emo Wolf was the strongest in eminent mountain Jia. Only he dared to attack the highly defended cities. Every time he went out on a city raid, he would come back with great prizes that the other factions were deeply envious of. The rule of the one-eyed Emo Wolf was that whichever bandit group performed a great service would be allowed to participate in the raids. This was a great business. These people were really pitiful. Zhou Emo woke up from his tranquil state. When he opened his eyes, a light flashed across them. The feeling of being filled with explosive power was so familiar that he almost assumed he had recovered to his peak. He lightly shook his head. Pia pia pia. A string of pops occurred from his neck down to his tailbone. An unprecedented feeling of comfort filled his body. Swamo's eyes brightened and his joy was hard to disguise. The Shin power inside his body had not reached his peak, but his present Shin power was more pure and condensed than it was in the past. He tried to turn Shun power into the 3 powers, and there were no hindrances. What made him happier was that at almost the same moment he thought about it, the Shun power had turned into the 3 powers. The entire process almost didn't have any pause, and was much greater than the process in the past. The good that came with the bad. He really got something good this time with the bad. The 3 powers that came from the pure Shun power was much purer than before. Zhou Emo had a feeling that he was just a thread away from a breakthrough. This breakthrough wasn't a breakthrough in a single field, but in all areas. Ling power, Emo physique, spiritual consciousness, they had all reached the border of a breakthrough. What made him even happier was that he had a strong confidence he would have a successful breakthrough. He raised his right hand. The whirlpool of power had shrunk by only a third, and the rate of spinning was slower than before. But it was still growing, and not long in the future, it would recover to its previous form. Zhou Emo suddenly became excited. The whirlpool in his right hand was like a Shin power spring that could continuously provide Shin power for him. If he persisted in taking Shin power from it, his Shin power would keep growing. His rate of improvement would become astounding. Zwarimo was filled with confidence. Looking at the wooden Agui, he couldn't help but go forward and ruffle Agui's hair. He muttered excitedly, Agui, I succeeded. I really succeeded. Agui's warm and raven-black long hair was turned into a pitiful bird's nest. However, she did not react and only looked at Zwarimo. That pair of dim and gray-white eyes seemed to be shrouded in mist. Kajwa was gaping. In that instant, the strong pressure that Zwarimo exuded almost pushed him to the ground. This world had changed too quickly. There wasn't anything that could give a person more confidence than power. Having recovered the majority of his strength, Zwarimo was even more composed and calm. He did not continue to extract Shun power. He hadn't completely absorbed the Shun power he had just taken. It would probably take 2 to 3 days before the process would be complete. He decided to look at that young female Imo. As to see, a hint of battle spirit flashed across Zwarimo's calm face. He was going to give the other a great surprise. So what if he was at the general level? Chapter 552, White Fang Mo Matrix murderous intent flashed through Owen's eyes. He had, long ago, noticed the group of people nearby. It was clear that the group was targeting them, and it could be seen that the other had a very low opinion of them. Unrestrained laughter could occasionally be heard from the groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Owen counted inside. There were 7 groups of Mo, each of unknown origins surrounding them. They were clearly being targeted. Right now, Owen was not the same naive youth that relied on only his talent to survive in the arena. He had fought in large-scale battles, seen rivers of blood. Both Pu Yao and Wei had great affection for him and his talent, putting great effort into teaching him. He was the strongest hardship guard in guard camp, even stronger than Shu Long. The only Shadow Mo guard, his abilities were completely different from the other hardship guards. He had unparalleled speed, so he had always acted as the scout. Even though the troop was only barely more than 100 people, Shu Long still methodically sent out scouts. Owen had quickly discovered these groups of bandits. The others' unrestrained nature caused murderousness to rise, but Owen did not act by himself. Instead, he reported the information to Shu Long, 7 groups of bandits. Shu Long made a thoughtful sound. Yes, all the groups have different head counts. The largest is about 500 to 600 people, and the smallest is 200 to 300 people. Owen reported in detail, there are about 3,000 people in total. Hearing this, Yi Ling's expression changed slightly. Nan Yu, Song Zhe, and the others stared at each other. They were completely shocked at this news. 3,000 people. When they looked at the 100 or so people around them, they felt a wave of coldness rise. 3,000 against 100. In other words, each one of them had to defeat 30 bandits. This was a ratio that seemed hopeless. They suddenly felt great admiration for Shu Long, as his expression was unchanged after hearing the news and there was no trace of panic. As expected of the leader of guard camp, he had the mannerisms of a great general. Yi Ling, what do you think? Shu Long suddenly asked Yi Ling. Yi Ling's expression had changed, but he forced himself to maintain calmness. Darren, what we need to do now is increase our speed and charge out of this jie before they finish surrounding us. Shu Long did not nod. He was thinking. He quickly shook his head and refused Yi Ling's suggestion. Our speed is not fast. They are bandits and are skilled in quick raids. They have an advantage of speed, and there probably are more people waiting for us ahead. Yi Ling's face was white. Shu Long's analysis was to the point. Then what do we do? Fight. Shu Long's eyes were filled with murderousness as he said in a deep voice, we mustn't just fight, we need to fight them until their forces are crippled. Only then will we have a chance to charge out of this jia. Everyone, including Yi Ling and Nan Yu, was stunned. 100 against 3,000, how did Shu Long Darren want them to fight? Wasn't that just seeking death? 100 against 3,000, there wasn't any chance of victory. Shu Long seemed to know their thoughts and said sternly, we are a trained battalion group, they are just a bunch of bandits. No matter how many there are, they are just rabble, there is nothing to fear. Yi Ling gritted his teeth. How does Darren want to fight? We will only have one chance. If we cannot destroy them in one strike, and they scatter, we will be harassed the entire way and then be in a reactive position, Shu Long said gravely. Zhou Mo inspected the Mo matrix on the young female's body. Now that he was half recovered, he didn't need Kajua to help him examine her. His movements were very slow, and his expression was grave. When the Mo matrix's maturation was interrupted, it actually had caused irreparable damage. The Mo matrix on the female's body was unusually complex. The White Fang Mo matrix was unique to the White Fang Snake Mo. If it had complete maturation, she would enter general level and her Mo physique would naturally form. So young, and she had touched the door to the general level. This young female was astoundingly talented. The White Fang Mo matrix was extremely unique. It could absorb power continuously and compress it to become more condensed. When it was cultivated to the extreme, one could compress all the power in the body to a point smaller than the point of a needle. This needle point was so powerful it could penetrate anything. Zhou Mo guessed that it could even penetrate a mature domain. Pu Yao and Wei examined the White Fang Mo matrix curiously. None of them had ever seen the White Fang Mo matrix before. It is slightly interesting. No wonder the White Fang Mo matrix ranks 16th among the general rank Mo physiques, Pu Yao said interestedly. He was an expert in Mo matrices and with a glance, he understood the core fundamentals. Wei looked at the young lady and then took his gaze away. He wasn't too interested in Mo matrices, but he had not seen this one before. Now that he saw the real thing, he was satisfied. 16th among general level Mo physiques? Zhou Mo said in shock. And a very strong Mo physique. However, what its greatest feature is that if one reaches general level, the Mo physique automatically forms. Pu Yao suddenly said, "How about you get some of this girl's blood? Her blood is probably strange." Wei, who had been silent, suddenly opened. "This idea is pretty good. I know some methods of blood sacrifice. Maybe you can possess this bloodline as well." Zhou Mo thought and then shook his head. "No, I feel that my Great Day Mo physique will soon have a breakthrough. The feeling is very strong." "That's true. You cultivate the Great Day Mo physique. The other Mo physiques cannot compare to it in terms of their foundations." Pu Yao nodded and said in agreement. Wei asked Zhou Mo, "You plan on saving her?" "Save her?" Zhou Mo shook his head. "I do not have such great ability. This damage caused by the Mo matrix has also damaged her blood and flesh. I cannot save her." Wei became silent. Zhou Mo did not speak more and continued to examine the Mo matrix of this young female. He didn't have any plans of saving her whatsoever. He couldn't do it, but even if he could, he didn't plan to. He was planning on making trouble for Tsing Yi once he had his breakthrough to get even over the matter of being forced against his will. He didn't have the habit of showing someone the right side of his face after they slapped the left. But this White Fang Mo matrix was really profound. Even Pu Yao didn't have many general-level Mo matrices. This was a rare chance. Zhou Mo's fingertip moved along the Mo matrix. The unusually profound White Snake Mo matrix caused him to sink into an immersed state. Without knowing it, a thread of Shin power was drawn out of his finger. When his finger traced the Mo matrix to the forehead of the young female, something happened. A great suction force suddenly formed at the forehead of the young female. Zhou Mo's Shin power broke free of his control and furiously flooded towards the young female's forehead. Zhou Mo was astounded. What was this? But no matter how hard he tried, the Shin power did not listen to his orders and furiously flooded into the forehead of the young female. Zhou Mo instantly panicked. If this kept on going, wasn't he going to be drained dry? Zhou Mo, who had just recovered half of his strength, could not accept a fate of being drained dry again. In a panic, Zhou Mo's right hand pushed against the young female's body, trying to push her away. Boom! The Mo matrix on the young female's body suddenly lit up. The blinding light broke through the room and a faint shadow of a white snake appeared in the sky. It could be seen from far away. "Jia Master Tseng, you really will not reconsider it?" the youth in front of Tsing Yi asked coldly. The youth had 2 slight bumps on his forehead. This was a trait unique to those with the bloodline of dragons, and this trait would only appear in those that had reached the general level. The youth's face was white as jade, his body tall, but his expression was cold and proud. His gaze was filled with haughtiness. There were two mo, one thin and one fat, standing next to the youth. The fat one had a jolly smile on his face and looked extremely welcoming. The thin one had a cold expression and his eyes were half-lidded. I do not need to consider it. Tseng Yi's expression was unreadable. He slowly said, "This one is nothing special as a Jia master, but it is a free existence. This one will have to reject martial yes favor." At this time, Tseng Yi's expression suddenly changed. At the same moment, the thin one next to the youth suddenly opened his eyes, and the fatty's smile disappeared. Without any words, all of them flew out of the room at almost the same time. A building in the distance was giving off great light. Amongst the light, the white shadow of a snake flickered in and out of view. "Liana!" Tseng Yi's expression changed dramatically as he shouted. Before the shout ended, he disappeared. Tseng Yi as a white-fanged snake emo as expected. The youth snorted and then joy came onto his face. This is a good chance. His daughter is at such a crucial moment, he won't dare refuse. Otherwise, he can't blame us for being vicious. Finishing, the trio disappeared. Zuaremo had never expected the other's MO matrix to be so strange. He was extremely panicked. When he discovered the light given off by the young female's MO matrix was so bright, he knew it was not good. How could such a big disturbance not be noticed by Tseng Yi? Damn it. This was not a good time to face Tseng Yi, but Zuaremo didn't have the time to regret it. He already detected Tseng Yi's presence. No, there were also 3 more generals. Zuaremo was shocked. For generals, even if he had a breakthrough, he definitely was not a match. "Liana!" Tseng Yi called out panically. His eyes were filled with worry and held none of the cruelness and indifference he usually had. "Jia Master Tseng, I feel you should consider what I just said," the youth said in a strange tone from behind Tseng Yi. Tseng Yi was infuriated. "You! Ha, Jia Master Tseng, this is for your own good," the fat one spoke with a smile. "As long as Jia Master makes a decision, we 3 are willing to help your daughter mature the MO matrix at the price of expending our own MO skills." Tseng Yi wavered. Zuaremo knew that it was not good. If Tseng Yi really agreed, then the one with the most terrible outcome would definitely be him. But Zuaremo didn't have the power to speak at this time. All of the Shen power in his body was flowing towards the brow of the young female. At this time, the suction at the young female's brow suddenly disappeared. Zuaremo didn't even have the time to be happy before a strange Shen power erupted out of the young female's forehead and flowed into Zuaremo's body along his finger. This burst of Shen power was extremely strange. When he looked inside his body, he could clearly see that the returning Shen power was silvery white. Once the silvery white Shen power entered Zuaremo's body, it was like a spark that ignited all the remaining Shen power in Zuaremo's body. Boom! It felt as though something exploded inside Zuaremo's head. Chapter 553, Fragments. Shu Long made multiple inspections to be certain there were no mistakes before he stopped. Nan Yu, Song Zhe, and the others were slightly nervous. They were having such a big battle for their first engagement, it would be lying to say they were not nervous. However, Pu Yao's high-intensity training showed its effects. They were nervous, but they still managed to maintain their calm. The mission that Shu Long gave them was very simple. They were to follow up on the hardship guard's attack. On the top of the mountain, there were copper pillars inserted into the ground that were covered in rough and thick engravings. These were totem pillars. Shu Long had made according to Weiss' teachings. The hardship guard that had been under Weiss' tutelage had completely changed their battle style compared to when they were under Pu Yao. All of the masters that Wei had been with had all been top-level geniuses. This allowed him to have a vast knowledge regarding MO battalions. In his hands, Guard Camp's battle methods had quietly changed. He also added on many ancient tribal combat methods and made the camp even stronger. Using the totem pillars was one of the methods. If it wasn't that Zuaremo had gathered large numbers of totem fragments, they could not have made the totem pillars. Guard Camp had a natural weakness, speed. In this era where speed was one of the ultimate factors, The clumsy Gurid camp was innately disadvantaged. Wei did not use any methods to increase guard camp speed, but used other methods to make them an unique heavy armor battalion. Yi Ling's heart gradually calmed because he found the entire battalion was well organized. Even though there was only 100 people, there wasn't any nervousness in their expressions. They were like precise instruments, their setup was crisp and efficient. Such a powerful battalion. Yi Ling, who had seen many battalions before, was filled with shock. The hardship guards had ease and calmness on their faces. There was no nervousness, no excitement. They seemed to move as though they were just training. Shu Long Darren did not give any motivational speech. He only sent down orders like usual as if it was just another day. This mountain peak was the tallest in the surrounding area. The peak reached into the clouds. The peak itself was a plateau about 70 or so mu. 120 totem pillars were securely embedded into the granite plateau, so only half of the pillar was exposed. The hardship guards stood between the totem pillars, and a certain kind of combat formation could be made out. The bandits that had been following them did not understand what was happening, so they did not attack immediately. The news about Mountain Dragon Corps had spread through all of eminent Mountain Jie. When the large formation was set up, Shu Long's eyes silently burned with heated fighting spirit. Zuomo's head rang as though something inside had exploded. His mind went blank. At this time, the young female under his finger made a sound. Xing Yi's expression became overjoyed as he unconsciously called, "Liana." The youth and the other two's expression sank. If they missed this chance, it would not be easy to persuade Xing Yi. The three of them were at the general level, but they were still wary of Xing Yi's white fang mo physique. The three exchanged a look, coldness flashing through their eyes as they moved at the same time. The youth headed straight for Zuomo and the young female to try to take the young female as a hostage, while the thin and the fat men leapt at Xing Yi. The moment the three moved, Xing Yi understood their intentions. He shouted furiously, "Die!" The almond yellow snake pupils turned gray-white as he charged fearlessly at the two people. His right hand was slightly raised and now shone with a gray-white light. A small howl seemed to come from hell. The fat one and the thin one changed expressions. The fat one shouted, and a brown-red mo matrix appeared. Layers of invisible ripples spread out. The thin one's fingers were like claws and flashed with a metallic sheen. His dark green mo matrix crept around his arms like countless branches of ivy. Xing Yi's raised right hand came into contact with the invisible ripples. Without any pause, it pierced through like a knife into water. One layer after another. The dozens of layers didn't manage to slow down Xing Yi's gray-white hand at all. The fat one's expression changed drastically. Xing Yi's strength far surpassed his expectations. At such a dangerous moment, the thin man's fingers howled like 10 sharp knives as it moved to block. There wasn't any emotion in Xing Yi's gray-white pupils. They seemed to be lifeless as his right hand continued to push forward without any thought of dodging the thin man's attack. A vicious look appeared on the thin one's face. His mo skill was ramped up to its limits. The dark green mo matrix suddenly brightened, and the green light drew out a blinding streak in the air. The two sides crashed together without any finesse, a contest of strength. Boom! The blinding green light instantly illuminated the yard. The burning light was piercing to the eyes. A minuscule sound of something breaking occurred in the middle of this blinding ball of light. The light disappeared without warning. Pain appeared on the face of the thin one. 3 of the fingers on his right hand had been broken. The fat one had a terrified expression, but he reacted quickly and shouted loudly, "Stop!" "Jie Masterting, your honored daughter," the fat one said with his fastest speed in his life. Xing Yi's gray-white pupils suddenly moved. The youth didn't even look at Zuomo once. There was only the young female in his eyes. The great sound of the explosion behind his back and the grunt from the fat one caused his nerves to tense. He knew that his conduct was akin to breaking the peace. With Xing Yi's temper, if he did not get even, he would not rest. Xing Yi was not famed, but the youth would not underestimate him. If Marshal Yu was not occupied and unable to come, it definitely would not be him that had come. Out of caution, he had taken along two General O, but he had not thought that these two had crumbled so easily when facing Tsing-yi. In one attack, one was forced to retreat and the other was wounded. The white Fangemo physique lived up to the rumors. He had the bloodline of dragons, but he had just stepped into general level and definitely was not Tsing-yi's opponent. The only chance right now was to capture Tsing-yi's daughter. That unconscious woman. If he could take her hostage before she woke, she would cause Tsing-yi to become wary, and he could easily get Tsing-yi to bow his head. He used all his power, his figure was lightning fast. In this moment, his mind was abnormally clear. When the face of the young female entered his eyes, when that exquisite and beautiful face entered his eyes, in this moment, he almost forgot to breathe. The long eyelashes flickered lightly, the slightly creased brow as though she was enduring some pain. On this flawless face, it caused one to unconsciously feel tenderness. A certain part of this proud youth's heart suddenly softened. The shout from the fat one behind him caused the youth to shake and wake up from his trance. This beautiful and flawless face in front of him had a demonic, bewitching power. The youth suppressed the trembling of his heart. He gritted his teeth and used all his power to grab at the young female. He was now even closer. The youth was filled with joy. Success was right in front of him. If he captured the young female, he could turn defeat into victory. His right hand touched the cheek of the young female. He could even feel the softness from his fingertips' success. Suddenly, the young female's long eyelashes fluttered and she slowly opened her eyes. The young female's eyes were like polished onyx, deep and bottomless. In that instant, the exquisite and beautiful face seemed to come alive. A beauty that was indescribable and a presence that was breathtaking. But it seemed like a poisonous snake in the dark had silently burrowed into the heart of the youth. The youth's expression instantly became dazed and his hand unconsciously stopped on the young female's snowy face. "I am Lianer." The young female's serene name was like a wisp that came with the wind. "Act," the fat one said panically. The youth did not seem to hear him and remained motionless. Pew 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 pew. Countless shots of blood sprouted out from the youth's body. The youth fell backwards. The expressions of the thin one and the fat one froze. They looked in disbelief at the scene that they found hard to understand. They had not seen the youth make any movement, did not detect any power vibrations, they hadn't detected anything at all. They knew the youth's power. He had risen to general level at a young age, and soon he would be able to awaken his dragon bloodline. His potential was unlimited. Even now, the youth was stronger than the two of them. He had actually died. They seemed to have seen a ghost. The scene in front of them was too strange, and out of the limits of their understanding. "I am Lianer," the young female said to Zuemo. That extremely beautiful face seemed to evoke tenderness. Zuemo did not seem to hear it. He was motionless. The young female's eyelashes lowered as she closed her eyes. In this instant, countless fragmented scenes appeared in front of her mind. The beat broke. "Do not forget." The crisp young female's voice was full of panic and worry. "Never forget." The young female seemed to repeatedly warn. The voice was clearly in front of him, but no matter how hard Zuemo tried, he could not see the face of the young female clearly. It seemed as though there was a layer of mist occluding his vision. Fragmented scenes flashed through his mind's eye. Every picture was fragmented, and only the young female's voice was clear. Sorrow and hopelessness corroded Zuemo like a spreading mist. Zuemo bit down on his lips. Having gone through many battles, he could see many things from these shattered scenes: blood, killing. The young female's voice came in and out, and was just as fragmented as the visions. "Don't be afraid. Quick run." There were even more broken-up sounds that he could not understand. It seemed like something was blocking Zuemo's heart. Indescribable sorrow spread inside. Suddenly, a scene caused Zuemo to shudder. A young female was carrying a young male as she ran furiously through the woods. Branches continuously scratched and whipped past them. Their clothing was torn and was in pieces. Zuemo could even hear the heavy breathing of the young female and the beads of sweat falling from her face. Mo dazedly looked towards the bottom of the scene as though he saw something unbelievable. A pair of perfect bare feet stepping over muddy soil, sharp branches as they continued to sprint. Mo stared at the running pair of feet and could not move his eyes away. "Young master, don't be afraid, I will definitely come find you." At this time, Mo heard a complete sentence in the young female's determined yet young tone. In this instant, it was as though Mo had been hit by something, and tears uncontrollably flowed. Chapter 554, Solution, Liana. Liana. Tsing didn't even look at the thin Mo and the fat Mo looking at Liana. His expression was excited. He stepped forward and grabbed Liana's hand. Mo's finger left Liana's brow and her black eyes silently opened. She swept across the soundings, and when she saw Ague, she paused slightly. When she saw Ague's bare feet, she had an expression of realization. She had actually seen the scene inside Mo's mind. She was also slightly shocked. "Was it Father?" Her voice was soft and serene. "Liana, you're all right. You are really all right. This is great." Tseng Yi was extremely excited, and in his eyes, Mo was akin to empty air. "He saved me," Tseng Lianer said serenely. Oh, I will definitely reward him well. He can have whatever he wants." Tseng Yi nodded repeatedly. He could not suppress the joy on his face, but his gaze did not bear to leave his daughter. The fat one and the thin one silently sneaked away. No one paid attention. Mo opened his eyes, and the first thing he did was search for Ague. When he saw Ague standing silently at the side, a phrase floated up in his mind: "Young master, don't be afraid, I'll definitely find you." He couldn't help but reach out and rub Ague's hair. "Ague, you found me." He wanted to smile, but his tears flowed down uncontrollably. He thought about how Ague had been covered in wounds when he had found her. She definitely had been searching for him. He thought about when they were trapped in the 9-turn sky soil disk, when she had faced the last attack of the clear sky old forefather, when they had been in the desert walking against the sand and wind as she had carried him, and her panting figure when she carried him through the woods in his memory. His vision blurred, and Ague's figure also became blurred. This blurred figure and the young and blurry figure in his fragmented memories merged together. "Did you leave me the 5-element glass bead? What happened? Ague, who wounded you so?" Ague took a deep breath. He grabbed Ague's hand and his expression recovered, but there was something else unusual in his gaze. The release of the seal on the 5-element glass bead meant that he had broken through into Jindan. Recalling that silver-white Shin power, he suddenly turned towards Tseng Liana. "That woman." His pupils contracted, and Tseng Yi. "What just happened?" Mo asked Pu Yao and Wei. Wei said, "It should be power resonance, a very rare occurrence. It means that the degree of compatibility between your powers is very strong and are of different orientation." Mo knew what power resonance was. This usually occurred when two kinds of powers in perfectly opposite came into contact and was an extremely rare event. The two powers would respond to each other, and this kind of intercourse would greatly aid in the increase of power. No wonder the silver Shin power the other had given back didn't cause him any trouble and helped him make a breakthrough. But he cultivated Shin power. The only power that could resonate with his Shin power was Shin power. This meant the other had to also cultivate Shin power. And it was Shin power of the completely opposite orientation. "Careful, this woman is dangerous," Pu Yao warned Mo. Without needing Pu Yao's reminder, Mo knew the other was dangerous. Up until now, Mo had only met 3 people of this era that cultivated Shin power. One was he, another was Ague, and the last was this Tseng Liana. He could not get the measure of this woman. But he didn't need to, Mo thought. After the breakthrough, his thoughts of making trouble for Tseng Yi had temporarily faded, and the other had helped in his breakthrough. What completely occupied Mo's mind at the moment was Ague. The memory fragments sealed in the 5-element glass bead had caused him great shock. He just wanted to find a place and calm down. Without another word, he grabbed Ague and jumped away. He had heard Tseng Lianer and Tseng Yi's conversation. He didn't need to worry that Kajua would get in trouble. Tseng Yi raised his head and was slightly surprised. The power that Zhuemo showed was out of his expectations. Let them go. Tseng Lianer spoke. Listen to Liana. Listen to Liana. Tseng Yi said affectionately and took his gaze away. What do these people want to do? What do they mean by standing there? A bandit asked in puzzlement. They aren't able to run. So they are trying to fight back. Just one word from Boss One Eye, and look at this. Not just 100 people, even if they are 1,000, they will be defeated. You are right, we are using a sword to kill a chicken. I heard the people from Mountain Dragon Corps retelling about their strength and thought there would be a lot of people. 100, it isn't even enough to pick our teeth with. Stop wasting words, just 100 people, how do we divide them up? We have to be first. There is only one space as a reward. You are right. A bunch of bandits charged at the mountain. Their actions caused a chain response. Seeing this, the other bandits unhesitatingly charged. 100 people in a formation on the mountain couldn't compare to the 3,000 bandits. The bandits that charged were like a tsunami, covering the ground and the sky. The suppressed fighting spirit in Shu Long's eyes lost all of its restraints and started to burn. Open! Black smoke suddenly sprouted out of the 108 totem pillars. The black smoke grew with the wind and in a flash, it covered the entire mountain peak like an enormous black cloud. The rushing bandits charged into the black cloud. Boom boom boom. The roiling black smoke was expelled from the totem pillars. They seemed to change constantly as though they were alive. Suddenly, the black smoke around one totem pillar condensed and formed the shape of a person. A figure made from black smoke appeared above the totem pillar. Mo grinding disc. If a Mo Golden Battle General saw this combat formation, he would exclaim in shock. Mo grinding disc was one of the strongest battle formations used to wear down the enemy. It was like a terrifying grinding disc. A battalion that was trapped in it was like a piece of meat thrown into the grinder and would be ground into meat paste. There had been innumerable Xiozha that had died in the Mo grinding disc in the past. But after that 1,000-year war, the Mo grinding disc had been lost and the technique never appeared after. Yet at this time, one of the strongest battle formations, Mo grinding disc, appeared on this little mountain and there was only 100 people. Kill! Inside the thick black smoke, Shu Long's shout echoed in the air like thunder. The battle formation shifted loudly and spun like a grindstone. Zhuemo looked silently at Agu. Ague sat beside him with a wooden expression. When he saw Agui's wooden expression, Zhuemo's heart hurt. The Shen power inside Agui's body was too strange, and Zhuemo couldn't find traces any of Agui's thoughts and memories. Her mind was completely empty. Zhuemo remembered that Ague had seemed most alive when she had been wounded and had no Shen power. Shen power. That intimidating coldness and voice caused Zhuemo's heart to hurt. Pu, Wei, what solutions do you have? Zhuemo asked. Pu Yao and Wei were both silent. Zhuemo knew that this was a hard problem for them. Pu Yao and Wei knew a lot about Yao and Mo cultivation, but they didn't know much more than he did about Shen power. It would be good if Ague could speak, Zhuemo murmured to himself. If Ague could speak, then she could tell him everything. Zhuemo knew this was a delusion. He forced himself to calm down and think back to every detail in those fragments. He instantly had many discoveries. Ague called him young master. This appellation implied many things. He probably did not have an ordinary birth. Ague had carried him and fled for their lives. There had also been those fragments filled with blood and slaughter. His family had probably encountered trouble. Who did it? Where had Agui's Shen power come from? Who had erased his memories and changed his features? Countless riddles came at him and almost pressed Zhuemo to the point of suffocation. Calm. He had to be calm. Zhuemo bit down hard on his lips and tried to maintain his calm. But his bulging tendons exposed the storm inside. Agui's Shen power was the greatest obstacle. This Shen power was extremely weird and Zhuemo could not extract it. At this time, Pu Yao suddenly said, "Do you remember the reverse shadow spirit silkgrass that I once mentioned to you?" Zhuemo stilled and thought for a while with creased brows before he nodded. I remember, you said the reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass can help me recover the fragments of my memory. Yes. Agui's memories have been damaged, her soul is wounded, and I suspect that the wounds in her soul are related to the Shun power that she cultivates. But if you want to know all this, you do not only have Agui's memories to repair, Pu Yao said. Zhuo reacted quickly and his eyes lit up. Yes. There is no need to start with Agui, we can start with me. The more he thought, the more excited Zhuo was. Yes. I should have also experienced those same events, and there would be shadows left in my mind. If I can recover my memories, I can know all this. I will know what Shun power Agui cultivates. I can think of a way to heal Agui. He had closed himself in trying to find a way through Agui. He had completely forgotten that he should also know. Thinking back to the time that the sect leader had picked him up at Wukong Mountain, it was about the same time that was indicated in the memory fragments were sealed in the 5-element glass bead. Can the reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass really recover my memories? Zhuo asked urgently. Wei spoke and proved that Pu Yao was not boasting. This is a grass that grows in the Mo realm. As long as there is one piece of the memory, it can completely reflect and trace back your entire memory. You have so many memory fragments now. If we can find reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass, you should be able to get all of your previous memories. Where is reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass? Pu Yao and Wei exchanged a look. Both hesitated. Where is it? Zhuo exploded. Wei slowly opened. Supposedly, there is reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass in Nether Spring Jie of the Ming realm. Reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass? Nether Spring Jie. Zhuo murmured, his gaze determined. Editor brag. Totally want to point out I got half of ZM's past right back in chapter 255. Woot woot. Chapter 555, An Unusual Breakthrough. What did you say? Shouted the one-eyed wolf Mo as he suddenly jumped out of his seat wearing an expression of shock. Boss, they all died. All of them. No one survived. His subordinate's face was ashen and bloodless. He had been flailing and stumbling when he charged in and still appeared weak in the knees. All dead? Be clearer. How did they all die? The one-eyed wolf Mo quickly recovered his calm and asked calmly. The people from all 7 groups died. More than 3,000 people. Not one left alive. The subordinate stammered. His eyes were thick with terror as though there was something chasing him. He was filled with hopelessness. He said tremblingly, They on Black Dragon Peak, they killed everyone. Impossible. The one-eyed Mo wolf was filled with disbelief as he shook his head. More than 3,000 people, how many people do they have? 100. 100 killing 3,000, do you think they are killing chickens? Boss, it's the truth. The subordinate was almost crying. You can go to Black Dragon Peak and see. It's corpses everywhere, from the peak to the base of the mountain, all corpses. The one-eyed Mo wolf suddenly froze. Hearing the subordinate speak like this, he finally believed it. Black Dragon Peak was not far from their base. His subordinate wouldn't easily make a mistake like this, and definitely would not lie to him about a matter like this. How was it possible? That was 3,000 people. How could 100 people kill 3,000 people, and not one survive? The one-eyed wolf Mo's extremities felt cold, his throat dry. Did you find any of their corpses? No. Coldness rose up in the one-eyed wolf Mo. How many years had it been? He had become so unfamiliar with the feeling of terror. Yet it was this unfamiliar terror that came like the tide and almost swallowed him. They had kicked a metal board. And it was a metal board that was the hardest there could be. 100 people were enough to massacre 3,000 people. Those were the elites of an extraordinary battalion. In the one-eyed wolf Mo's career of raiding, he had never seen nor heard of such a powerful battalion. If it hadn't happened to him, he would definitely not believe it. Right now, he only felt terror. Such a terrifying battalion was something only those enormous factions could possess. Was this the personal battalion of a Mo marshal? The one-eyed wolf tried to maintain his calm, but his legs uncontrollably trembled. Any Mo marshal in the entire 100 Savage was the warlord of an area. Marshal was a title that meant power. There were no Mo marshals that lived alone except the ones that existed in legend. He might be able to dominate eminent mountain Jie, but in the eyes of those Mo marshals, he was a small character who could be killed at any time like an ant. Which Mo marshal didn't have many powerful generals and Jie masters under them. The one-eyed wolf Mo looked vicious and arrogant, but he was very smart. He never provoked any factions. He could not afford to. The power represented by a Mo marshal, it was an existence he could not afford to provoke. Damn it. How had he done something so stupid? The one-eyed wolf Mo was full of regret. The only good news was that the other didn't seem to have sustained any serious injuries or fatalities. He was familiar with the mentality of those personages. For those personages, their time was unusually the most precious. As long as there wasn't great trouble, they were not willing to waste time on ants. "Where are they?" the one-eyed wolf Mo asked in a trembling voice. "Go gone," the subordinate stammered out. No one dared to block them. The one-eyed wolf Mo released a breath. "They are gone. Good. Good. It was good if these kind of death gods were gone." Shu Long and the others who only desired to keep traveling did not pay attention to the other bandits. The other bandits were frightened out of their wits. Which one of them dared to continue and harass the caravan? The news that a battalion of 100 people killed 3,000 bandits quickly spread. Many people expressed their disbelief when they heard the news. This news only exploded when the mirage of the hellish state of Black Dragon Peak was spread. Everyone speculated to which faction this terrifying battalion belonged to. 100 killing 3,000, this amazing result caused the reputation of this mysterious battalion to rise. Because they did not know the name of this battalion, many Mo called this the Butcher Battalion. Shu Long and the others only tried to travel faster. They didn't know that the Battle of Black Dragon Peak had attracted the attention of many factions. However, even if they knew, they would not have cared. Because they received Zhuo Mo's order to reach Shattered Stone Jie at the fastest speed. Zhuo Mo furiously absorbed Shen power from his hand. The threads of Shen power continuously merged into his flesh and blood. After the breakthrough, Zhuo Mo seemed to have broken all the chains holding him back, and his cultivation increased at amazing speeds. It was strange to speak of. Zhuo Mo's Ling power had finished core formation, his consciousness had formed the Yin spirit, but it was his Mo physique that was lacking. Zhuo Mo could not understand this. Of the three powers, the Mo physique was the one he was most familiar and most skilled with. Rationally, the first breakthrough should have been his Mo physique. But Zhuo Mo was not in a hurry. At this time, he was in a stage where his power was steadily increasing. Every time he drew Shen power from his palm, he could feel a clear improvement. Zhuo Mo did not have the time to cultivate any of the three powers and processed Shen power. The palm of his right hand was akin to a bomb that could explode at any moment. The vast Shen power in it was truly enchanting. Zhuo Mo didn't waste one iota of time and threw himself into furious cultivation. In this time, he had investigated Nether Spring Jie. Just like the Xiuzhou world was called Four Realms, the Mo world had another name, the Dark of 100 Savage. It was divided into two realms. One was 100 Savage Realm, the other was the Dark Realm. Nether Spring Jie was located at the deepest regions of the Dark Realm. No one knew much about the Dark Realm. They only knew that that was the darkest and most chaotic place of all of Dark of 100 Savage. It wasn't easy to even reach that place. One had to pass through the territories of many great factions. The journey would be filled with danger and bandits. In the Dark Realm, there were vicious and savage Mo that even those large factions were wary of. This branch of Mo was infamous. They were born as berserkers. They were cruel, bloodthirsty, and without any emotion. Zhuo Mo knew if he wanted to eliminate a Gui's Shen power, if he wanted to know everything, if he wanted to find the reverse shadow spirit Silkgrass, he had to become even more powerful. By himself, his power was not enough. He needed helpers. He decided to wait for Shu Long's group at Shattered Stone Jie. He used all his time to cultivate day and night. He had never been as motivated as he was now. A Gui was sitting silently beside him. Just like normal, Zhuo Mo started to cultivate, but he quickly detected an unusual shift inside his body. The sun crystal seed was spinning rapidly, the flames shifting in layers. The green vine mystical water released faint light that was warm yet cool. What surprised Zuemo was even the soul-setting divine light had become restless like a rainbow fish that swam nimbly without stopping inside his body. All the signs signaled that something unusual was happening. Was he having a breakthrough? Zuemo knew, if this was the time, it would require him to be even calmer and maintain a clear mind. He slowly channeled Shen power. The Shen power merged into his flesh and blood, turning to the three powers, and then turning back to Shen power. It repeated this in an endless cycle. The MO matrix on his body slowly lit up. The faint gold MO matrix was complex. The MO matrix brightened and dimmed as though it was breathing, but each time it flashed, the intensity of the brightness would increase. When the golden Missouri matrix reached a peak brightness, the blinding golden light was piercing. At this time, the sun crystal seed suddenly released a flood of scorching flame. It was like burning lava that covered the Shen power eating at his body. The green vine mystical water's presence also increased, and the moisture sank into Zuemo's blood and flesh. The blood and flesh that had just been burnt by the sun crystal seed was instantly restored like nothing had happened. The MO matrix on Zuemo's body instantly had new changes. The golden Missouri matrix seemed to come alive and move along Zuemo's body, transforming. Gradually, the MO matrix that was extremely packed started to divide into many areas. The MO matrix gathered in these areas, and as its movement grew slower, 10 clear marks formed. Suddenly, the sun crystal seed inside Zuemo's body brightened and released golden light from his chest. An astounding scene happened. The 10 marks, that were formed by the MO matrix shrinking, had started to move along Zuemo's body as though there was an invisible line pulling them. The largest golden Missouri matrix moved to the center of Zuemo's chest as though it was attracted by a magnet. The light of the sun crystal seed merged with this largest MO matrix. The MO matrix seemed to turn into golden liquid and flowed along Zuemo's chest as though a pen was slowly drawing out lines. At the same time, the other 9 MO matrices lit up. The blinding MO matrices connected and changed. They each became rounder, and the 10 pieces of the MO matrix became 10 perfect circles like 10 small suns. 10 suns were situated at different parts of Zuemo's body. The 10 suns suddenly gave off great light, the dark night so bright it seemed like day, and the stars in the sky losing their light. At this time, the swimming soul-setting divine light ferociously burrowed into the sun MO matrix at Zuemo's chest. Then, like a needle, it rapidly passed through the other suns. Ruler straight lines spread through the 10 suns and connected each sun to the other 9. In a blink, there were crisscrossing golden lines on Zuemo's body that connected all 10 suns. Only now did the MO matrix's light seem to be used up. Zuemo opened his eyes. His eyes had turned a faint gold, and it was possible to discern crisscrossing golden lines inside his eyes. There was a golden sun MO matrix on his forehead that appeared extremely domineering. This is... Zuemo looked dazedly at the sun MO matrix on his palms. This sun MO matrix was similar to the day script that appeared when he used day script palm, but it was even more complex and beautiful. 10 suns, the largest was on his chest, the smallest between his bows. There was 1 each on his hands and feet, 1 on his stomach, and 3 on his back. Zuemo knew that he definitely had a breakthrough. But, such a strange feeling. Zuemo had a strong feeling that his breakthrough was unusual. What had happened? Chapter 556, 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus. Pu Yao and Wei looked at Zuemo like they were looking at a freak. What is with your gaze? Zuemo was unable to maintain his calm. You leveled up. Pu Yao's voice was as cold and indifferent as usual, but Zuemo, who had become familiar with him a long time ago, could hear the thread of unusualness in his voice. I know I leveled up, Zuemo muttered. He then asked in anticipation. What MO physique do I have now? Is it powerful? Pu Yao's gaze was very strange. Very powerful. The one who spoke was Wei. Wei's expression was also very strange. Your present MO physique is called 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus, A very rare Mo physique, one even rarer than the white fang Mo physique. This powerful. Zuemo was overjoyed. Then he bent down his neck and said uncertainly, "Are you sure? Wait, isn't the white fang Mo physique a general level Mo physique? You have not remembered it wrong." Pu Yao's gaze became even stranger. Zuemo stilled. After a while he said slowly, "General level? I leveled up to general level?" Pu Yao and Wei did not speak and only looked at Zuemo strangely as though they could observe something from Zuemo's body. Zuemo was stunned by the news. General level. He had moved into the general level. This was too fantastical. His great day Mo physique had been a colonel level Mo physique. Zuemo had thought it had encountered some problem when it hadn't had a breakthrough after all this time. He hadn't expected to actually go past the brigadier level and go straight into general level. The difference between general level and brigadier level was the difference between Yuanying and Jindan. There were innate differences. This was not rational. This was not rational. Zuemo thought dazedly. It should be caused by the sun crystal seed. And green vine mystical water and soul setting divine light. What does 10 Crow celestial apparatus rank among the general level Mo physiques? I don't quite remember it. Third. Hearing the discussion between Pu Yao and Wei, especially when he heard that 10 Crow celestial apparatus was ranked third, he shook and woke up. Zuemo grumbled, "Why isn't it second?" Pu Yao and Wei turned, looking at him as though they were looking at an idiot. Great Day Mo physique was second in colonel level. Zuemo said righteously, "From second to third, this is a step back." Idiot. Pu Yao spat out a word. A person like this actually could cultivate the 10 Crow celestial apparatus. Weiss' gaze was also as though he was looking at an idiot. I just said so, it was definitely because of the sun crystal seed. With a treasure like this, even an idiot can possess 10 Crow celestial apparatus. You are right. Pu Yao and Weiss' disdain-filled discussion passed into his ears. Zuemo really could not resist. Hey, speak clearer. After Pu Yao and Weiss' detailed explanation, Zuemo had a general understanding. The leveling up of Mo physiques would not have too much of a correlation with the initial rank. For example, while Great Day Mo physique was second among colonel level, but there was more than one path it could level up through. The difference between each of the leveled up Mo physiques was large, and 10 Crow celestial apparatus was the best level up path for Great Day Mo physique. According to Pu Yao and Wei, they felt that the reason he had reached 10 Crow celestial apparatus was directly connected to the sun crystal seed inside of him, and also the sun shen power he cultivated. Even the green vine mystical water and the soul-setting divine light were hugely influential. Otherwise, with Zuemo's present power, the best outcome of leveling up would be the light manifestation Mo physique that ranked 7th in the brigadier level. After listening carefully, Zuemo understood. However, he did not care if the cause was the sun crystal seed. What he cared about was ranking third in general level. Having seen the power of the white fang Mo physique that ranked 16th in general level, 10 Crow celestial apparatus that ranked third should be even stronger. 10 Crow celestial apparatus? Zuemo recited inside. His gaze looked unconsciously towards Agu. Ague, I now have the 10 Crow celestial apparatus, I will become even stronger. Gripping Agui's hand, Zuemo went back to his cultivation. He didn't want to waste one bit of time. Ranking third in general level, 10 Crow celestial apparatus. If he could drag out all the power of such a powerful Mo physique, the chances of surviving a trip to the Nether Spring Jie should grow much higher. Zuemo pondered this. Watching the furiously cultivating Zuemo, Pu Yao and Wei were silent. He's working very hard, Wei suddenly said. Pu Yao looked at Zuemo and seemed to be thinking. His bloody pupil was deep and his emotions were complex. A moment later, he suddenly spoke, I've decided to help him. In which way? Wei raised his head. Using everything I can do. Pu Yao raised his head. You were right last time, we have to settle our accounts. Gong Sun Cha laid on the bed and his thoughts wandered as he stared at the ceiling. Zhua Mo Shixiang had passed information on everything that happened recently back to Turtle Island. There was nothing concealed. Each of them had read all of it. No one had ever thought that Shixiang's history was so wondrous and so tragic. Even though they didn't have a complete picture, but just the information they had now was enough for them, people who had been through many battles, to smell the thick tang of blood. Shixiang's present mood was probably, no, he couldn't let Shixiang fight alone, he had to do something. Gong Sun Cha suddenly sat up straight. A moment later, a smile suddenly rose in the clear eyes of the neighbor's boy. In the depths, fighting spirit rose like flowers on the wind. They had always fought side by side. The dark of 100 savage, it really was a challenge. His spirit burned and his blood was nearly boiling, but Lil Miss' mind was unusually calm. He started to ponder how to actualize his intent. He definitely could come up with the most suitable strategic plan. Darren. The guard outside knocked on the door. What is it? Interrupted, Lil Miss frowned. The guard came in and handed Lil Miss a jade scroll. He reported, just now, Wei Xing Darren came and delivered a jade scroll. He said to give it to Darren. Eldest Shixiang? Lil Miss stilled. He picked up the jade scroll. A moment later, he wore a grimace. Eldest Shixiang had gone by himself to search for Zhua Mo Shixiang. To Gongsun Shidi, brotherhood and friendship, one needs to remain true. I am unable to stand by and watch. Heart of a sort, can safely strike and be safe. Know that this one's strength is not enough, so I bid farewell. I go to the Mo world, using fighting to cultivate, kill Mo to temper the sword. If I am not dead, and reach the nether spring, I will lend the strength of one sword. In the jade scroll, Wei Xing's voice was indifferent and filled with decisiveness. Crazy! Lil Miss murmured. Raising his head, his bangs swayed despite the lack of wind. A bashful smile hung on Lil Miss' face. Huh, let's be crazy together. Turtle Island's atmosphere suddenly became tense. The intensity of vermilion bird camps and guard camps training was increased to unprecedented level. The tense atmosphere allowed everyone to understand something had happened. It quickly spread in the two camps that Zhua Mo Darren had encountered trouble. Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp had followed Zhua Mo from Little Mountain Jie and their bond was deep. Hearing that Darren had encountered trouble, and there were no orders to move out, only orders telling them to train, the group understood that their current strength was not enough to resolve the trouble for Darren. Without needing any urging, the two camps started to cultivate more furiously. The large families in Cloud Sea Jie quickly received orders. A new camp, Green Dragon Camp, was going to be set up and was requesting each family to send outstanding disciples to the recruitment. The families with disciples selected would receive more benefits. This order caused a great wave in Cloud Sea Jie. As the Great Thousand Island formation expanded day by day, every family knew that Turtle Island's rule of Cloud Sea Jie was unbreakable. Only by responding to Turtle Island's orders would they receive more benefits in the future. Countless accomplished youths flooded towards Turtle Island. When Sherdong received the order, he was slightly puzzled. His progression speed far surpassed his own expectations. However, he had not expected that Lil Miss Darren was still unsatisfied and ordered him to speed up his advance. Other than this, he was also shocked that Lil Miss Darren allowed him the right to expand Grey Camp. Someone major probably happened. Sherdong's temper was not the best, but he was a smart person. The first he thought of was Zhua Mo Darren. Zhua Mo Darren. That Darren that Yi Ling said could become king? He thought for a moment before sending down the order to expand the troops. He then ordered an increase in training intensity. Did something happen? Darren. His subordinate asked suspiciously. Zhua Mo Darren might have encountered some trouble, Sherdong explained. Our King Darren encountered trouble. The subordinate paled and asked urgently, Is it great trouble? Is there danger? Do we need to go reinforce him? Sherdong was surprised by the subordinate's fierce response. You are very rushed? The subordinate stilled and said unhesitatingly, Of course, that is our king. You feel that he can become king? Sherdong asked something that had puzzled him for a long time. Definitely. The subordinate balled his fist and had a serious expression. We all believe he can. So it's like this. Sherdong was thoughtful. The subordinate charged outside without even bowing to Sherdong. He had to pass along this news as fast as he could. All hail the king. These are the MO matrices that Darren has sent, as well as some of his own conclusions regarding the topic. Master Sun Bao looked at the people below and said gravely, during this period of time, everyone will need to put aside all other work and work on the MO matrices. Everyone nodded but were slightly astounded. It had to be said that while the missions of Golden Crow Camp were difficult and demanding, the atmosphere was free. The two masters generally allowed everyone to explore their own projects and would only gather everyone's power during some special missions. Had something happened? Everyone was puzzled. Master G. Weiss' expression was also very grave. He was handing out jade scrolls. Master, did something happen? Someone asked. Everyone's gaze gathered on Master Sun Bao. Darren encountered some danger, Master Sun Bao said in a deep voice, and needs our help. It was deathly silent. A second later, it exploded. Darren encountered danger? Damn it. Did the other groups go play and not fulfill their responsibilities? Where is Lil Miss Darren? Heavens! This isn't true. These young production shoujo were furiously and wanted to charge out. That was Darren. Darren who all of Golden Crow Camp had sworn an oath to forever follow. No one would forget who had passed on spells and techniques, who had given them Golden Crow fire, why they did not have to worry for the clothing on their back, and could even do whatever they wanted. They remembered who gave them all this. Damn it. Shut up. Master G. Weiss' shout caused everyone to stop talking. Master Sun Bao didn't have any trace of a smile. There seemed to be fire flickering in his gaze. Everyone, make use of the time and study the Jade Scrolls. Inside are the conclusion and studies Darren has relating to the MO matrices. We need to understand all the problems in the shortest amount of time. There seemed to be a fire burning in everyone's eyes. And then, we will start engraving MO matrices. This is a war. Chapter 557, Screw Live and Die Together. Zwa Mo did not know about what was happening on Turtle Island. He forgot himself in his cultivation. In the past, Zwa Mo had not chased after power. He did not have great ambitions, it was enough to have enough power to live well. But right now, he had an almost absurd desire for power. It was clear that both the matter of healing a Gue or investigating his birth, success would be based on one foundation: strength, great strength. Every day, he was immersed in cultivation as though he did not know exhaustion. He was waiting for Shu Long and the others to arrive. If his investigation was right, Nether Spring Jie wasn't a place that he could go to alone. 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus. The physique ranked third in the general level, and as expected, it had its unique traits. Wei was familiar with all kinds of MO physiques, and this allowed Zwa Mo's cultivation to be extremely focused. In a few short days, Zwa Mo's strength had shot forward and he finally had a comprehensive understanding of the 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus. The name 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus alluded to the 10 suns on different areas of his body. They looked more like carefully carved tattoos, and not MO matrices. The most eye-catching was the sun matrix at the center of Zwa Mo's forehead. The perfect circle was made of complex and beautiful patterns. There was a jagged zigzagging pattern on the circumference of each deep dark gold sun, representing rays of light. Zwa Mo's face was not handsome, but when the sun script symbol appeared there, it added a hint of mysteriousness and nobility. 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus. Each sun represented a source of power. He needed to accumulate power and activate each sun. Each sun contained a transformation. 10 suns meant 10 transformations. According to Wei, MO that cultivated 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus were rare, and rarer were those that comprehended all 10 transformations. 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus, each transformation was extremely powerful and domineering. What was even more frightening was that the power of 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus would be used with finesse and technique, and was not just the application of brute force. But what was most famous about the 10 Crow Celestial Apparatus was not the 10 transformations, but that it had the title of Best Domain in General Level, 10 Crow Celestial Domain. Hearing this, Zhou Mo hungered for it. It was a pity that Wei didn't know how to comprehend 10 Crow Celestial Domain. Domain was a type of power that was accessible to only those Yuanying Xiuzhe, General Mo, and Rahula Yao. Dingjin's Lantern Fire Buddhist Domain was an example, and Wei Xing had been able to grasp the beginnings of domain while he was in Jindan. Wei Xing's talents were astounding. Having seen Dingjin's Lantern Fire Buddhist Domain, Zhou Mo yearned for domain. However, Wei did not speak more about how to comprehend domain. That was something far beyond where Zhou Mo was. Even though Zhou Mo had obtained 10 Crow celestial apparatus due to having a precious treasure in his body, he still lacked comprehension. With his body now in a balanced state, having had a breakthrough in his Mo physique, Ling power, and consciousness. It was the two powers to first have breakthroughs that were now holding him back. Zhou Mo worked on processing the Shen power in his right hand, and then turned it into Ling power and spiritual consciousness. He used this method to also strengthen his 10 Crow celestial apparatus. Zhou Mo had originally assumed that this stabilization would take a long time. Unexpectedly, he only needed 10 days to raise his Ling power to Yuanying levels, and his consciousness to Yao Mansion. One factor was the abundance of Shen power. The increase in the power whirlpool in Zhou Mo's right hand was still accelerating, and the amount of Shen power he drew every day increased. While overjoyed, Zhou Mo was also slightly worried. Based on this speed, the Shen power being produced every day would soon surpass the amount he could process. The other factor was that while his 10 Crow celestial apparatus was not very stable, it was at the general level, and higher than both Jindan and Yin Spirit. But Zhou Mo had forcefully crossed the boundary between levels by relying on treasures, and his understanding of the power was completely different than others at the level. All paths of power led to the same destination. Even though the Mo physique was different compared to Ling power and spirit consciousness, there were many places Zhou Mo could study and copy. Pu Yao and Wei were not shocked by Zhou Mo entering Yuanying. In their eyes, this was natural. However, Pu Yao was slightly excited now that Zhou Mo's consciousness formed the Yao Mansion. Yao that formed their Yao Mansion were called Rahula Yao and could be counted in the ranks of experts in the Yao world. Zhou Mo's talent in Yao arts was actually very good, but compared to the even more amazing Mo physique, it was slightly lacking. Leaving Pu Yao to feel that although Zhou Mo was his student, Wei had taken the glory. Now that Zhou Mo had formed his Yao Mansion, it meant that he could pass more Yao arts to Zhou Mo. Also, archaic wasteland sacrificial art was more suited to Rahula Yao. However, Pu Yao did not say this. He was busy doing some other things. Some strange messages appeared in the corners of 10-Finger Prison. The messages were worded strangely and the sentences incomprehensible. They were also posted in remote places that were not attention-catching. But if those with intention searched, they would find to their shock that there were similar messages at every level of 10-Finger Prison. Will this work? Wei asked Pu Yao. Don't know. Pu Yao's bloody pupil was deep. It has been too long. I don't know if they still remember, let's just try. I don't know how many of Master's supporters still remain, Wei said calmly. I have sent out the blood summons. Pu Yao's eyes flashed with a reckless light, a cold smirk at the corner of his mouth. No matter how powerful time is, it will leave some remnants behind. You plan on having a Zhou inherit all of this? Wei looked at Pu Yao. Pu Yao shook his head. He may not be willing to inherit. Our thoughts are the same. Wei nodded. However, he needs power. Pu Yao's robes moved despite the lack of wind. His voice became deep. He doesn't understand himself, and we cannot truly understand him. His enemies most likely are far more powerful than even he imagines. He only has one path. Wei suddenly gave a small smile. Very similar to how we were. Pu Yao's memories were stirred by this, a reminiscing expression in his bloody pupil. He quickly calmed down. Also, it will not be unprofitable for them to follow him. Families that stood guard for thousands of years and did not give up should return to glory. Wei sighed. I do not know how many still remain. Pu Yao also became silent. He also did not know. Zhuo suddenly stopped his cultivation. He detected someone was approaching. His body turned towards the people approaching and stood between them and a Gui, shielding a Gui behind him. Two figures appeared like ghosts nearby. "It's you!" Zhuo's gaze focused and he was shocked inside. In the night, Tseng Lianer's exquisite and beautiful features looked more mysterious. Her black opal-like eyes held an indescribable light. There was also a woman standing next to her. Looking at her attire, it should be Tseng Lianer's maid. She stopped at a distance of 5 zhang from Zhuo. "You are going to Nether Spring Jie?" The serene voice drifted over with the wind. Zhuo, who had not lowered his guard, suddenly focused his gaze. He asked in a deep voice, "How do you know?" "This is Shattered Stone Jie." Tseng Lianer did not pay attention to Zhuo's wariness. Zhuo understood. Most likely, his search for reverse shadow spirit silkgrass had caught Tseng Yi's attention. This outrageously beautiful woman in front of him gave him a great sense of danger. Even though a part of his breakthrough was owed to this person, and the other's silver Shen power had been one of the main causes of his breakthrough. But he could not get the measure of this woman's power or intentions. "I cultivate moon Shen power." Tseng Lianer's seductive face became slightly dazed. She raised her face, and the moon above her head brightened slightly. A ray of moonlight fell on her face, illuminating her delicate features. The long eyelashes, the warm lips, the flawless face, under the illumination of the moon, it seemed to shake the soul. Moon Shen power? Zhuo finally understood why the other's Shen power would have power resonance with his Shen power. "I will go with you to Nether Spring Jie," Tseng Lianer said serenely. "You'll go with me to Nether Spring Jie?" Zhuo heard this and stopped for a long time before he reacted. He felt it was humorous. "Ha, what are you saying? You are going with me to Nether Spring Jie?" "Ha." "Yes." Tseng Lianer looked at Zhuo with her calm eyes. Zhuo heard the determination in the other's voice and his humor receded. He frowned. "This joke isn't funny, I'm not familiar with you." Tseng Lianer's voice was extremely pleasing to hear. "Because you cultivate Sun Shen power, and I cultivate Moon Shen power." "Don't understand." Zhuo shook his head. "If we cultivate together, our Shen power will grow even more quickly," Tseng Lianer explained. Zhuo finally understood. "You mean power resonance?" "It is also called paired cultivation," Tseng Lianer said lightly. "It is very beneficial to you." Zhuo was not persuaded. "I do not need it." "Because of your right hand?" A hint of mirth rose in Tseng Lianer's pupils. However, Zhuo did not find it funny. His heart shook. The other's familiarity with his secrets surpassed his expectations, to even know about the whirlpool of Shen power in his hand. "This woman, I do not have any malicious intentions. The whirlpool in your right hand is growing, and you can only absorb a small amount. When it reaches a certain level, you will lose control of it." She stared at Zhuo and said, "Paired cultivation can solve this problem." Zhuo spread his hands. "Why should I believe you?" "Because when your Shen power awakened me, it left an imprint on my body. If you die, I cannot live," Tseng Lianer said as though it was nothing. "If I die, your Shen power will also crumble." You are a good liar." Zhuo laughed coldly. "The paired cultivation, when it began, it decided our fate. If I channel Shen power, you will be able to feel it." As she spoke, the moonlight around Tseng Lianer brightened. Zhuo's expression changed drastically. His Shen power was moving against his will. "This is the power resonance you speak of. If you channel Shen power, my Shen power would also resonate." Tseng Lianer's words burrowed into Zhuo's ear. "Damn it. I think that it is much safer to follow you, so that I do not die mysteriously one day without knowing the cause." Tseng Lianer didn't look at Zhuo as she slowly walked to his side. She sat down, and her maid knelt down next to her. In a blink, a little wooden table appeared, an exquisite tea set, a small stove, and she started to boil tea. "Sea of consciousness." Zhuo urgently asked Pu Yao and Wei, "This woman is truthful?" The one that explained was Wei. "It is true, the paired cultivators in the ancient era usually lived and died together." Screw live and die together. Zhuemo swore with a terrible expression. Actually, this isn't a bad thing. Before Wei finished, Zhuemo angrily turned and left the sea of consciousness. Moonshin power? Pu Yao was thoughtful. Chapter 558. Light. Zhuemo was furious about the situation, but Sung Lianer didn't even bat an eyelid. She slowly lifted her teacup and elegantly drank. Under her long eyelashes, her bright black eyes were shrouded in the steam. Ague sat disaffected by Zhuemo's body. She was like a puppet, wooden and lifeless. In front of Ague, Zhuemo looked warily at Sung Lianer, his brow locked in a frown. He didn't know what to do with this woman that suddenly popped out. Having recovered his calm, Zhuemo started to ponder this matter. But no matter which angle he thought about this from, this matter was not anything good for him. He wasn't interested in something like paired cultivation at all. Yet he had entered what was going to be a long period of attempting high-level power increases. He also found it hard to accept that he had to now live and die together with an unfamiliar woman. Also, if the other encountered danger, it meant that he would also encounter danger. In an instant his risk of danger had doubled. The damned paired cultivation. Zhuemo felt especially aggrieved when he saw the other's calm state. Zhuemo shook his head and decided to not waste any more time on this topic. He started his cultivation again, but out of consideration for safety, he shielded Ague behind him. Even he didn't notice that he had done this unconsciously. A faint gold light came out of Zhuemo's body and was eye-catching in the darkness. Almost the moment Zhuemo started channeling Shin power, Sung Lianer's body shook and faint moon essence shrouded her body. Zhuemo instantly detected the change in Sung Lianer. The Shin power inside his body was unusually active. The Shin power that usually delved into his blood and fixed to his flesh seemed to be drawn out instead. The rate that the power whirlpool in Zhuemo's right hand was spinning it slowed, and the Shin power from the whirlpool flowed out of his right hand and merged with the Shin power that floated out of his blood and flesh to circulate around Zhuemo's body. Observing the path that the Shin power took in circulation, Zhuemo unconsciously recalled the contents of the gold leaf, and a kind of epiphany occurred. The golden leaf recorded the cultivation method for the Sun Shin power, but due to the gap in eras, it was hard to understand the contents. Zhuemo was confused by many parts. Now that Shin power was circulating through his body in this novel manner, he seemed to understand many of the cryptic phrases on the golden leaf. Immersed in the joy of understanding, Zhuemo completely forgot the flow of time. The golden light that Zhuemo released was restrained, but Sung Lianer's moon essence nearby was so thick it was almost tangible. The moon moved, the night gradually faded. Dawn silently arrived and the sky started to turn white. The moment the sun came up out of the horizon, Zhuemo's body suddenly shook. It gave off blinding golden light as though it was a sun, responding to the sun in the horizon. Boom! The sun crystal seed inside Zhuemo's body suddenly gave off a great amount of flames. The golden flames crisscrossed and wrapped around the sun crystal seed. Following that, a dash of golden liquid charged forward on the path that Zhuemo's Shin power took. The golden liquid did not move quickly, but was extremely hot and felt as though it was burning. What shocked Zhuemo the most was its domineering nature. It was the utmost domineering. As though nothing could stop it. As though it was howling, full of dissatisfaction. Like it had a dream that one day, it could be like the sun that was rising on the horizon, to hang in the sky. In this moment, strange scene played out in front of him. Inside an empty and black void, a thread of celestial fire formed, and it grew with time, forming a ball of fire. After millions of years, it grew even bigger, so big until it was almost the size of a true sun. Suddenly, a hand reached into the void, a hand that looked very normal. This hand only grasped lightly, it a terrifying power that never had been experienced before. The hand squeezed from all directions. The sun's enormous body was forcibly compressed to become the sun crystal seed. For some unknown reasons Zhuemo suddenly understood. He understood its dissatisfaction, the dissatisfaction of not being able to be in the sky. The burning golden liquid suddenly passed into Zhuemo's heart. Zuomo's body suddenly shuddered and his chest felt as though it was burning. The complex Sun Mo matrix at his chest slowly lit up. Boom! Blinding golden light sprouted from Zuomo's chest. A domineering and vast power filled Zuomo's body. In this moment, Zuomo had a feeling he looking down on the world. Even those massive mountains and endless deserts were specks under his feet. This feeling came quickly and passed quickly. The Sun Mo matrix at Zuomo's chest seemed to come alive and slowly spun. Zuomo could clearly feel that the golden liquid turned into a ball of fire when it reached his heart and was spinning endlessly. A feeling of unprecedented fullness spread through his entire body. The first sun of 10 Crow celestial apparatus had formed. The moon essence dissipated with the sun. Sung Lianer glanced at Zuomo. Her face was filled with shock and held none of the ease she had previously. It was as though she was looking at a strange monster. He had actually had a breakthrough. Even though she was unable to detect the exact changes inside Zuomo's body, she could clearly feel that Zuomo's power had reached a whole new level. The Moonshin power inside her body also had grown considerably with the paired cultivation, but compared to the other, it was an insignificant increase. Her face surprised, her black onyx eyes were filled with disbelief. What she cultivated was Moonshin power. Unlike Zuomo, she had inherited a complete inheritance. In reality, she had guessed long ago that Zuomo's Shin power came from a fortuitous encounter. Zuomo's Shin power cultivation methods had many areas that were irrational, and he didn't even know about how they had entered paired cultivation. But a person like this had had another breakthrough in the span of one night. In reality, when she had come to Zuomo, she had been shocked when she first saw him again. It had just been a few days since she had first seen him, but Zuomo's power had clearly increased. Breaking through the boundary between brigadier and general, her power was also in a period of accelerated growth. She had worked hard on her cultivation in these few days, and her power had leapt ahead. Even when Master had been alive, Master had always praised her outstanding talent and for being the most talented and accomplished disciple of the lineage for more than 1,000 years. She had believed in that. But, looking at this freakish person, her confidence started to waver. She looked at Zuomo as though she was admiring a great masterpiece. How many more days? Shulong asked. Behind him, the hardship guards still moved uncompromisingly in their military formation. If it all goes smoothly, then 10 days. Yi Ling tried to stay alert, but his voice was filled with tiredness. In these days, they hadn't rested at all. They had moved at the fastest speed that was safe. What was most irritating were the occasional battles along the way. Since the war between Xiuzhe and Yaoma had begun, security in these areas had declined and bandits could be found everywhere. When they encountered bandits, Shu Long wasn't soft-hearted. If they encountered any bandits, they would kill all of them. Later on, Yi Ling thought of an idea. He put up a flag on the caravan with the character, Guard, written on it. After winning the next few battles, the name of Butcher Guard Camp spread, especially when someone discovered that Shu Long's group was the battalion that had killed 3,000 bandits in Eminent Mountain Jie with only 100 people. This bit of information instantly caused waves. This also caused bandits to disappear from where Guard Camp was passing by. Even the local factions ignored this terrifying 100-person strong battalion. They definitely did not dare to provoke the caravan. Luckily, Shu Long and the others moved quickly and did not linger. People paid attention to this and secretly speculated that Guard Camp was probably on a special mission. Consequently, Guard Camp's traveling speed suddenly increased. Shu Long was full of praise for Yi Ling's idea. He didn't care at all about getting famous. His mind was completely filled with getting to meet Darren as soon as possible. 10 days. Everyone's morale rose. This was the longest journey that Guard Camp had ever taken since it was established. They didn't even know how many jie they had crossed. Fortunately, Yi Ling had brought along enough Mo Bay. This meant they could use the blood pools. The blood pools of the Mo and the Yao doors of the Yao were like the transportation formations of Xiuzhe, and similarly there were tolls to be paid. Otherwise, it would take years to fly to their destination. Nan Yu, Song Zhe and the others were also exhausted. However, their wills and hearts were more steeled compared to the past. All of them cultivated powerful Yao arts to start with, and the fighting had been of great aid to their training. They were completely different people now. In 10 more days, they would be able to see Darren. Everyone found themselves filled with energy. Golden Crow Camp was filled with light but unusually silent. Xiuzha were lying askew in the enormous room. The snores were like the beats of a drum. Master Sunbao was also in a corner and drooling as he slept. Master Jiwei also was robbed of all dignity, his legs spread on the stairs as he laid with his limbs spread out, his mouth wide as his snores roared. Each of them were sleeping sweetly. Many people had lingering excitement on their faces. Not one of them was awake. They were extremely tired. They hadn't rested for one moment in so many days. When they were tired, they would throw back a Ling Dan for energy and continue to work. Just by relying on a pile of Ling Dan, they did not sleep nor rest as they studied the MO matrices and what Darren had sent back about engraving and activating MO matrices. Everyone worked as hard as they could. No one complained. Everyone furiously worked as though they were possessed without any regard. Everyone understood that this was a war. But today, they finally saw the light. Zhongru entering seclusion did not attract too much attention. Right now, Turtle Island was unified. Everyone was focused on getting stronger. Many people were using seclusion as a method. He lightly covered the stone slab entrance. The last thread of light that crept through the cracks from the outside disappeared as the cloth settled in front of him. It was completely dark inside the mountain cave, but Zhongru's mind was unusually calm. He had told no one else that his seclusion this time was intended as a death seclusion. Death seclusion was an extremely dangerous type of seclusion, death or advancement. In this seclusion, the number of mental demons would be 10 times what it usually was. If one was the least bit careless, they would go mad, their minds would collapse. But Zhongru didn't feel any terror. As if it was just like usual, he crossed his legs and sat down, chanting sutras like usual. In the past, he had sworn the Buddha abandonment death wish that he was to use his Vajra body to protect Darren. Right now, Darren had encountered trouble and his strength was such that he could not help Darren. In the darkness, Zhongru's expression was calm. There was no hesitation, no fear, only calm, because this was the path he chose, oath he gave. Chapter 559, Meeting Up. Shuei, how have you been these days? A friend called out loudly. How has he been? Which one of you have ever seen him go out play? Another friend rolled his eyes and said exasperately. Shuei smiled slightly and did not respond. I feel that my question is pretty stupid too. The friend shrugged. Alright, we just got something on our hands, and it really would be a waste not to go out and have some fun. This guy really wastes his good skill. The other friend's words were filled with envy and jealousy. Shuei smiled and waved at his friends as they left. He was not tall and his figure was slim. His short hair was messy and soft, and his complexion was slightly pale and caused him to look prim and delicate. The smile on his face was especially endearing. Along the way, many females glanced at him, and some more daring MO females threw seductive looks in his direction. Suddenly, Shuei's expression changed slightly and his steps stilled. His expression quickly recovered and he looked just like usual except that he walked at a slightly faster pace. When he returned to his home, Shuei quickly locked his doors. At this time, a thread of excitement flashed through his eyes. He spread open his palm. A bright blood-colored dragon had clearly appeared on his skin. The blood dragon's head was raised proudly, that pair of eyes giving off a vicious air as though it could fly out of his hand at any moment. It is true. It is actually true, he said to himself. He was out of his mind in excitement, laughing and crying at the same time. He recalled both his father and grandfather who had passed away. Their last words had been so similar. Wait for the blood summons. He had doubted whether or not the blood summons existed numerous times. Grandfather had waited his entire life and never gotten it. Father had never gotten it either. He did not truly know what the blood summons were. To him, the faint dragon script on his palm was just a memento to remember his father and grandfather by. The blood summons existed only in a tiny part of his mind, a corner that he had long forgotten. The Water Moon family, he smiled weakly. When grandfather had grown old, he would always tell stories about the past glory of the Water Moon family, but from youth, Shueyu only listened to them as stories, because he had never felt the glory of the Water Moon family. None of his friends had ever heard of the Water Moon family. As for Water Moon MO skill, it was just slightly better than the average MO skills. Shueyu, who had been very mature from a young age, was extremely hardworking, and his talent among those of the same age was among the top half. Grandfather had sighed countless times while saying that if Water Moon MO's skill was complete, Shueyu would far surpass his present skill. When Shueyu heard this, he would hurriedly try to comfort his grandfather each time, saying that he could still become very strong with the present MO skill. He never believed that there was a complete Water Moon MO skill, but he understood father and grandfather. Old people would always live in their memories of their past glory. Not long after grandfather passed away, father also passed as well. Shueyu had started to learn how to make a living for himself. Fortunately, he had worked hard from a young age, and was much stronger than those of his age cohort. As he was composed and willing to work hard, people gradually stopped underestimating him because of his age. He was young, but after hunting MO embryos, his battle experience was high. Starting from a long time ago, he assumed that he would live his life like this. Until today, when the blood summons appeared. Shueyu recovered from his daze, his eyes becoming clear again. He stood up and started to pack. There was no mental struggle, no resistance. He didn't know why. Maybe it was that the stories and reminders from his father and grandfather had leached into his blood in his youth, even if he told himself countless times that the blood summons didn't exist. For the blood call, his forefathers had struggled and lived. This youth's pale face was now full of longing. Tseng Lianer found it strange. Today, Zhou Mo had not cultivated like he usually did. She smelt something was unusual. In the days since she had come, she had personally seen how crazy Zhou Mo was in his dedication to cultivating. He was crazy, squeezing out every second of time. She had been astounded inside. He repeated the dull and dry cultivation process over and over as though he did not know exhaustion. In her eyes, Zhou Mo's manipulation of Shen power was very crude, and there were still many flaws. It was not as refined as hers, but if the two of them fought to the death, she felt that the one to survive would be Zhou Mo. He really was a crazy person. Every time she thought this, she would unconsciously look at a guy. Those shattered yet heart-shaking visions would silently creep into her mind and cause her heart to tremble. She casually pondered and observed as though everything had nothing to do with her. But today, Zhou Mo was acting out of the ordinary. He wasn't cultivating. This was the first time in the many days she had been here that she saw him stop his cultivation. Even though Zhou Mo seemed very calm, Tseng Lianer perceptively noticed the thread of excitement in his eyes. Was something about to happen? At this time, Zhou Mo suddenly stood up. Almost at the same time, a bunch of little dots appeared in the distant horizon. Those were... Tseng Lianer's heart shook slightly as she stared at the little black dots. While her expression was calm, her surprise increased. And her maid, Yenner's expression showed terror. A battalion. Tseng Lianer's eyes were very sensitive. There was only 100 people, but she could judge, from the organized formation, that this was a battalion, and it was a battalion that was very strong in combat. A black flag was held at the front of the troop with a large word, "Guard," written on it. This battalion did not move quickly, but the formation was strict and flawless. The shock it brought was enough for Tseng Lianer to be stunned, the daughter of a Jia master who had seen numerous battalions. The other also noticed the four of them, and the troops suddenly turned in their direction. Like a shark that smelt blood, the entire battalion accelerated without warning. A wild howl started like hundreds of beasts howling as they charged. Tseng Lian's fist unconsciously tightened within her sleeve. She felt as though an invisible rope was strangling her. "Miss!" Yenner's face was ashen, her scream filled with terror. She pulled hard at Tseng Lianer's sleeve, trying to pull her to escape. Even though her face was a pale white, Tseng Lianer did not move at all because she noticed that Zhou Mo was motionless. Was it? An absurd idea rose in her mind. Boom! The battalion had arrived. The dust that rose up from their landing was like a wall of earth that had appeared out of nowhere. It rose up and shrouded everyone's view. 2 zhang away, Zhuo Emo fearlessly stood in front of the earth wall like a spear. The wall of dirt dissipated and the true appearance of this battalion was exposed to Tsing Liana. The first phrase in Tsing Liana's mind was, veterans. This was a troop of just 100 people, and each person's individual strength wasn't worth anything in her eyes. But when this dusty troop appeared in front of her, she was unable to dismiss their existence. They seemed to be part of one being. The combat formation was intimidating as though it was a killing machine that was prepared to massacre the enemy at any moment. Darren! Many people's voices were hoarse, but everyone had excitement on their faces. Morale was high as they stared at Zhuo Emo, their eyes filled with undisguised admiration and respect. Looking at their dirt-covered uniforms and the exhaustion that could not be hidden, Zhuo Emo's nose felt sore. He suppressed it and a smile bloomed on his face. Everyone, you must have worked hard. Have everyone rest. Zhuo Emo said to Xu Long in a soft voice. Xu Long was hesitant. Zhuo Emo knew what he was worried about and said directly, I have broken through to Yuanying. Ecstasy appeared on Xu Long's voice and then he nodded, giving the order to rest. When the order was given, everyone immediately sat down where they were. Zhuo Emo walked over and inspected every person to see if there were any hidden wounds. They had completed such an astoundingly long journey with many fights big and small along the way by gritting their teeth and holding their breath. Now that they released it, the exhaustion and suppressed wounds would come up like the tide. Yenner's little mouth was wide. Everything that was happening in front of her surpassed her imagination. This battalion was that guy's. She didn't understand why Miss had to follow this guy. Was it because he had healed and woken Miss up? It was the first time she had seen a man being carried in a princess carry by a woman. Such a weak man. But since Miss had decided to do this, she did not speak. In any case, her duty was only to follow Mississippi. This scene stunned her and her mind turned blank. Tsing Liana's gaze was deep. From beginning to end, she did not speak a word and only looked deeply at Zhuo Emo. It was unknown what she was thinking. Jia Master, we have identified them. This battalion is Butcher Guard Camp. Chao Yu reported in haste. Tsing Yi caught the thread of fear in Chao Ye's voice and couldn't help but feel slightly shocked. He knew his subordinate well, who was usually black-hearted and very daring. It couldn't be anything normal that had caused Chao Yu to lose his composure. Butcher Guard Camp, Tsing Yi said amusedly, and then asked, what is their background? Unknown, they are a battalion that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They numbered just over 100 people, but some time ago, when they were passing through eminent Mountain Jie, they were surrounded and attacked by bandits. They massacred 3,000 bandits and left unharmed. When he spoke to her, Chao Yu couldn't help but think of the blood scene in the mirage he had obtained, and his expression was slightly ugly. Eminent Mountain Jie, the Jie of bandits. Tsing Yi's expression suddenly became grave. 103,000 unharmed. He felt deep shock at this news. Eminent Mountain Jie was not far from where they were, and the fame of the Jie of bandits was well known. Even though he did not pay any attention to bandits, but 3,000 bandits were not a small number. If the other side had just 100 people, then it was a very terrifying matter. If it was his battalion, he couldn't help but shake his head. Unless he personally lead the troop and took along all of the brigadiers and colonels under his command, he wouldn't obtain such a result. That youth's face appeared in his mind. He was shocked. This person's background definitely was not simple. Thinking of his daughter, he grimaced. There was no use in thinking so much. Other than getting onto good terms with the boy, what else could he do? After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, order the Celestial Planet Guard to follow Mississippi. No matter where Miss goes, they have to follow. Even if Miss tries to get them to leave, they have to follow. Celestial Planet Guard. Chao Yu gaped and was stunned. Chapter 560 Departure. Zhuo Emo glanced at the guards crowded around Tsing Liana and was slightly surprised. There wasn't a large number of guards, but their average skill level was not low. There were 7 Brigadier MO. The others were Colonel, but they were each very close to Brigadier level. It was clear that this was an elite force. Remembering that the other's father was a Jie master, Zhou Mo felt this was very normal. However, the other guarded Tseng Lianer constantly and didn't even move a step away. It looked as though they would not accept his orders. Zhou Mo did not care. He wanted Tseng Lianer as far away from him as possible. He was strangely wary of this beautiful woman whose personality he could not understand. Ague was much better. Zhou Mo thought this as his gaze landed on Ague, softening his expression. However, when he recalled how Ague had not shown any improvement even after consuming the water cloud embryos, Zhou Mo's mood sank again. The Mist People and Turtle Island had set up a transportation formation between Cloud Sea Jie and the Mo territories, so it was easier to travel through. Xu Long had coincidentally come to reinforce Zhou Mo after the Mist People had delivered water cloud embryos to Turtle Island, so he had brought them along. The Mist People had special methods to preserve the harvested water cloud embryos, and so they would not lose their effectiveness. But after Ague used them, there was nothing else except slightly more vitality in her eyes. The Shen power inside her body was strange and malicious, almost completely sealing off Agui's soul. It had consumed the water cloud embryo. Agui's Shen power actually grew a fraction. He could not keep dragging this on. "Have you all recovered?" Zhou Mo asked Xu Long. "All recovered?" Xu Long's face held joy. 6 hardship guards leveled up and also a flower Yao. Additionally, Miss Nanyu has leveled up. These hardship guards had been the elite of the elite he had picked from guard camp. The journey this time had been dangerous, but since they made it through, they benefited greatly from their gains. Zhou Mo had taught Nanyu the longest, and she was the strongest of the group. Adding on that she was stubborn and hardworking, she had only lacked real combat experience before. This long journey and the hundreds of small and large battles along the way had caused her to quickly break through and cultivate Ti'in's spirit, stepping in the realm of Rahula Yao. Zhou Mo also had a happy expression. Every bit of strength meant they had a better chance. In guard camp, only Xu Long and Owen had been in brigadier level. Now there were 6 more. Yi Ling had originally been a brigadier. Adding on the flower Yao and Nanyu that leveled up, there were 11 people of at least the brigadier level in Zhou Mo's troop. There were 11 brigadier and 1 general level in a troop of 100 people. The rest were also experienced fighters. This troop could be called a powerful one. Shou Ping was observing this famed battalion, Butcher Guard Camp. Maybe it was more accurate to call them infamous. As the commander of Celestial Planet Guard, Shou Ping was a silver battle general and Tseng Yi's left and right hand. However, every time Shou Ping observed this battalion, he couldn't help but feel a part of his soul tremble. Before this, he had been very confident in the skill level of the troop he commanded. It had been through his hard effort and energy that they had created the present Celestial Planet Guard. Not just in Shattered Stone Jie, even in the nearby Jie, Celestial Planet Guard was considered the top battalion. But with something to compare to, the top battalion in his eyes were like a group of idiots wearing glittering clothing in front of other people. Previously, he had suspected the truthfulness of the rumors that 100 had killed 3,000, but after he met this battalion, he didn't doubt the rumors anymore. With a battalion like this, not just 3,000, even 5,000 might be possible. The others' regulations were so strict and they were shockingly well trained. He had never heard of a battalion maintaining their formation even while at rest. They would each cultivate of their own accord when they had any spare time. It was the complete opposite of himself who had to stand guard every day and supervise Celestial Plant Guard's training. They were like a pack of insatiable beasts that never knew rest nor exhaustion. Shou Ping was frightened. He wasn't the only one. The members of Celestial Plant Guard who were usually very proud were frightened. In the beginning, they had been rebellious when Shou Ping told them to not make any trouble. But after 2 days they had seen guard camp's group of crazy people that didn't seem like Emo. They didn't have a temper. They had a kind of killing energy where even a glance caused fear. But Tseng Liana was extremely calm as she cultivated on a regular schedule. She would idly drink tea and eat pastries as though she was on a sightseeing tour. Shou Ping felt admiration for Mississippi. As expected as the daughter of Darren. In the future, Darren's role might have to be passed on to Miss Hands. Zhou Mo didn't pay too much attention to the celestial planet guards. His standards had been raised up high by Lil Miss and the others. He really did not think too highly of celestial planet guard's skill level. He turned and looked into the distance. That direction was the direction of Shattered Stone Town. He had considered taking along Kajua and Dong Zi, but after thinking about it, he ended this notion. One was a simple youth, the other was a Matrix Awakening master without any skill to protect himself. Depart, Zhou Mo said indifferently. Fei Lei, are you really going to leave? The youths looked yearningly at the other. Fei Lei reached out his hand covered in scars and rubbed the head of one of the youths. He said with a smile, I have my fate. Fate? The youth's tender faces were puzzled. Something that I have to do, that is fate. Fei Lei explained with a smile. His body was extremely broad and well-built, his features sharp and weathered. His short, dense beard was peppered and his eyes were a faint gray that was unusually deep. Will you come back and teach me? The youth spoke in a stuffed voice. No. Fei Lei still smiled as he narrowed his eyes. He showed some hints of age. You need to work hard on your cultivation, do not slack off. This way, you can enter the battalions early. Everyone, I am leaving. Finishing, Fei Lei turned and charged forward, taking 2 steps and shot up into the air. His long windbreaker was like the wings of a bat as he flew into the sky. He did not turn his head. His deep light gray eyes looked towards the distance, filled the weariness of having seen the world. A burning flame shot out and silently pulsed. There was a vicious-looking blood dragon script on his tightly clasped palm. The battle horn that had been sealed for thousands of years seemed to have been blown in his ear. Zhou Mo's Jie map had been obtained from Tsingyi. The collections of the master of a Jie was pretty good. Through this Jie map, Zhou Mo was able to easily locate Nether Spring Jie. This was a journey that was even longer than Shu Long's journey from Little Savage Jie. Little Savage Jie and Shattered Stone Jie both belonged to 100 Savage Realm, but Nether Spring Jie belonged to the deepest part of Dark Realm. The distance between them almost crossed the entire Mo territories. The factions along the way were many and their territories crisscrossed. Though the majority of faction territories on their journey were not labeled, barely a tenth were. Zhou Mo understood upon further thought. Zheng Yi was pretty powerful, but he clearly had no ambitions to expand. The Jie map only labeled the areas near Shattered Stone Jie. Zhou Mo knew that this was not going to be an easy matter, but he had no thoughts of retreat. He also planned on trying to buy reverse Shadow Spirit Silkgrass along the way. Fortunately, the Mo had the blood pools. It was the first time Zhou Mo saw a blood pool. The blood pool was like an enormous pond that was filled with a bubbling liquid that appeared similar to fresh blood. However, Zhou Mo knew that the blood was not actual blood, but a solution called Crimson Blood Solution. Its composition was extremely complex. Just like the Xiuzhe that were able to set up transportation formations in the Xiuzhe territories, the Mo that were capable of making Crimson Blood Solutions had high status. Shu Long and the others were experienced and jumped into the blood pool in an organized manner. Zhou Mo picked up a Gui and jumped unhesitatingly into the blood pool. A Gui would only remain unaffected towards one person's actions, Zhou Mo. When Shou Ping saw this, he stole a look at Mississippi. Miss appeared unaffected. He couldn't help but release a breath. It seemed that Miss was not attracted to this boy. Then he felt a slight regret. This boy wasn't tall, handsome, or rich, but he was fierce, influential, and strong. Our Mo traditions value fierce men, Miss. It is the first time Old Shou has seen such a fierce man. Such a pity, such a pity? Shou Ping muttered inside as he daydreamed. How powerful would it be if the two married? However, none of this could be seen from his face. He calmly followed behind Miss into the blood pool. When he jumped into the blood pool, Zhou Mo felt his vision turn blood red. A strange sweet scent came into his nose. Strangely, the crimson blood solution would not enter his nose like water, but glued onto his skin like a cool membrane. Suddenly, an enormous suction force came from underneath them. Before they could struggle, they were pulled down by this force and disappeared. When the force disappeared, Zuoremo opened his eyes. He saw Shu Long and the others floating in the crimson blood solution nearby. The blood-red crimson blood solution was clear like a red crystal. Zuoremo could clearly see everyone's figures. Without any orders or being directed, several of the hardship guards floated up. Moments later, they signaled that it was safe, so everyone floated up. The blood pool was not always a safe place. It had been all right before the war started. None of the large powers would allow any safety issues to arise at their blood pools. This was related to the stability and infrastructure of their territories. They had maintained their trade routes. However, the war was increasing in intensity, and many places were restricted. Some blood pools, because they were in areas that lacked a ruler, became places that bandits liked to lie in ambush. Shu Long had encountered this kind of situation along the road, so they were very familiar with the safety measures. Walking out of the blood pool, what entered their eyes was a desolate scene that caused Zuoremo to show wariness. Shou Ping became nervous and signaled the celestial planet guard to instantly encircle Tseng Liana. Shou Ping said in a low voice, "Miss, the situation is not right." Tseng Liana glanced at Zuoremo and asked, "Not right?" "And this subordinate came here a few months ago. Previously, there had been a market here," Shou Ping said in a low voice as he looked around warily. Shou Ping did not deliberately keep his voice down. Everyone had good hearing and naturally could hear him clearly. The mood suddenly became tense. Chapter 561, The Beginning of War. This is the intelligence we have gathered. We have identified Jies with chaos rifts. Xie Shan's face was tired, but his eyes were unusually bright. There are 3 Jie in total. East Flow Jie, Middle Granary Jie, and Cloud Gate Jie. The enormous mirage showed a gigantic Jie map. Gong Sun Cha listened closely, fearful he would miss a detail. Ma Fan, Wei Ran, and the others stood in ordered ranks. There hasn't been any action at East Flow Jie's Chaos Rift. Cloud Gate Jie's Chaos Rift leads to the Yao territories, and Earth Universe sect in Cloud Gate Jie is very powerful and possess 6 battalions. They control almost half of Cloud Gate Jie. Xie Shan's intelligence was very detailed as he steamed on. Our best target is Middle Granary Jie. It isn't just the closest to us, its largest local sect was defeated. They are in chaos. It has been confirmed that the attacks are a MO battalion. It is definitely the MO territories behind the Chaos Rift. Because there have not been any MO hostages, we are unsure at the moment which Jie it is. As long as it leads to the MO territories, it is valuable to us. Gong Sun Cha caused everyone to sit up in alertness. He stood up and slowly scanned the crowd. Everyone sat up straight. Everyone should know what is going on with Shixiang. Gong Sun Cha's tone was very calm, but his ruffled bangs could not stop the light of his eyes. Our goal is very simple, reinforce Shixiang. But if we enter any MO Jie, we will create an endless struggle with the surrounding MO territories. But we must reach into the MO territories so we can reinforce Shixiang. Gong Sun Cha had clearly thought this through. His rationale was clear. We can create our own MO battalion using Guard Camp and Sherdong. These MO battalions can enter the MO territories and then reinforce Shixiang. We can even turn Cloud Sea Jie into a place where Yao, MO, and Xiuzhe can coexist. This is hard but not impossible. Everyone showed thoughtful expressions. After a few moments of thought, they nodded slightly and fighting spirit started to burn in their eyes. Lil Miss smiled slightly. The bashful smile of the neighbor's boy appeared. The eyes behind the bangs grew even brighter. His calm tone was filled with an indescribable insanity. But before this, we need to take over the Chaos Rift and the territory that can lead into the MO territories. We need more battalions. We need more resources. We need to become stronger. Everyone's eyes flashed crazily. They felt as though their blood was burning. Are you ready? The demonic slight smile and the furious fighting spirit crossed like light and dark on Gong Sun Cha's raised face. Everyone stood up and shouted together. Gong Sun Cha walked next to Middle Granary Jie on the mirage. He turned around, his bashful smile filled with cold fighting spirit. The war has begun. Sherdong's progress in Little Savage Jie was extremely quick. Right now, he had taken over all of Little Savage Jie. In the past, he had not been trusted, but he had fame in Little Savage Jie. Everyone knew that Sherdong was a very strong battle general. So when Sherdong suddenly returned to fight, other than his former leader that called for his head, no other power said anything. In the Mo territories, events like this happened every day. For those noble families, there were things like glory and honor. But for these little factions, the strongest was king. Whomever had the biggest fist was the leader. Sherdong faced off against his former boss. Before he could attack, the boss' subordinates mutinied. Everyone knew that Sherdong had not been fully trusted but the boss, but everyone also knew how strong Sherdong was. Being former allies, they also knew better than other people. To stay alive, they directly surrendered. After the great victory, Sherdong dissolved the local battalions according to Lil Miss orders and selected the elite ones to replenish Grey Camp. In a short period of time, Grey Camp had expanded to 3 times its former size, yet he had only picked the top-quality Mo troops. However, he also knew that it would take a certain amount of time for this reformed Grey Camp to be battle-ready. But with Great Day Hardship Guard, he had enough confidence he could make Grey Camp into a top-rank battalion. However, he clearly underestimated Turtle Island's strength. He received Lil Miss orders for Grey Camp to send members in a rotation to go to Turtle Island and undergo special training. Special training? He was slightly puzzled. What kind of training was special training? However, these were orders and he knew what his duties were, instantly arranging it. Mo did not know that there were countless eyes watching their journey. The name of Butcher Guard Camp intimidated small forces and attracted the attention of larger forces. Though they were not willing to provoke Guard Camp, it did not stop them from secretly investigating them. There had clearly been a fierce battle here. The market's ruins and the burnt black soil all pointed to this. Everyone's nerves were tight. They were not worried about encountering bandits, but were very worried about encountering large battalions, especially Xiuzha battalions. It was a dangerous matter for Shou Ping's group to fight against Xiuzha, enemies they were unfamiliar with. Mo didn't want to encounter them either because his identity might be exposed. Even though Guard Camp didn't appear any different than Mo after Weiss' teachings, but those large sects were immeasurable in skill. If he was exposed, it definitely would not be fun. Those people that exterminated Mo would exterminate them as well. Celestial Planet Guard and Guard Camp carefully kept their guard up. From the way they did this, it was possible to see the difference between the two groups. Every person in Celestial Planet Guard seemed to be anxious, fearing they would face great enemies as they moved carefully. Everyone in Guard Camp had calm expressions. Only the light that occasionally flashed through their eyes exposed their wariness. The skill could be instantly judged. Shou Ping shook his head inside and was deeply impacted. He quickly threw all stray throughout to the back of his mind. Everything in front of him was unusual. A black shadow suddenly flashed by and entered the ranks of Guard Camp. So fast. Shou Ping was shocked. The speed of this scout surpassed all people in Celestial Planet Guard. There are 2 groups fighting up ahead, both of them. The fighting is fierce. When reported the situation that was occurring up ahead. Mo's brow creased. This path was one they had to travel, they could not go around it. Let's go see. The troop moved silently and the intense battlefield quickly appeared in front of them. The sky was chaotic. A small group of Mo were surrounded by numerous Mo that had dark green wings on their backs. These dark green Mo were grouped together like packs of wolves that scattered and gathered, covering the sky and howling. They are green Yaksha. Wei reminded Mo, they are extremely fast and not weak offensively, innately cold-blooded and desirous of slaughter. They are most skilled in attrition battles. You have to be careful. What weaknesses do they have? Mo asked. If Lil Miss was here, he definitely would not ask this question. Lil Miss seemed to know all the Yaoma. They like to fight, are easily angered, and their tempers are not well regulated. Wei said rapidly, however, you need to be careful. While normal combat Mo are not disciplined, it is easy for battle generals to come out of Green Yaksha. Those above silver are pretty good, and actually, Snake Mo also easily produces battle generals. Zhuomo's gaze quickly landed on Mo wearing a bright red cape on the battlefield. This person was well-built and extremely brave. He stood with empty hands at the front of the formation. Every time he attacked, it was a ball of fire. If the green yiksha that charged were not careful, they would be burnt into ash at a visible rate. The fatalities of the defending battalion was high. The reason they had not been defeated yet was mostly due to this large Mo. Darren, they seem to be protecting someone, Yi Ling said in a low voice. He was experienced and instantly detected it. Zhuomo made a sound. He had also noticed this. There were only 300 people left in this battalion, but they were still resisting and protecting an old person. The fatality rate of the green yiksha was also high, but they were in a frenzy, wave after wave battering against the others' battle formation. With every wave numerous corpses would drop from the sky, but fatalities would also occur in the others' battle formation. Zhuomo's expression changed. One side did not care about fatalities, the other side did not retreat a step. The battle was intense and fierce. He had heard Wei and Pu Yao say before that the Mo were skilled in battle and that their battles were unusually cruel. Having seen it with his own eyes, it really was so. In comparison, the battles between Xiuzhi troops were lacking. When Shou Ping saw the green yiksha, his expression changed. Especially when he counted that there were 700 to 800 green yiksha flying in the air. The green yiksha were not rabble-like bandits. 700 to 800 yiksha were enough to take down a city. Thinking about the ruins of the market they had walked past, Shou Ping's heart sank. Had it been these green yiksha that were responsible? He couldn't help but turn to look at Zhuomo. He saw the other had an expression of ease without any visible panic. He felt embarrassed inside. He was a battle general, but he hadn't seen battle yet. He wasn't comparable to this youth. Zhuomo's expression was calm, but he was slightly panicked inside. He was not as freakish as Lil Miss, but his judgment had been honed with practical experience, and he was much stronger than average silver battle generals. The fighting most likely would not finish up in a short period of time. The large man's side had fewer people, but they were resolved, and there seemed to be someone directing them. Their defense was very strict. Other than charging at them, the green yiksha didn't seem to have a good solution. The battle probably would continue through to tomorrow night, Zhuomo guessed inside. But what he did not want to encounter such a delay. The two sides fighting quickly noticed Zhuomo's group. An old voice suddenly came from the formation behind the large man. Which friend is this? This one is Tao Xing from Endless City. Please, friend, give this one a hand in aid. After this battle, this one will give heavy thanks. The other was asking for help, but he still maintained his mannerism and there was no panic in his tone. Tao Xing. Shou Ping's pupils suddenly expanded as he exclaimed. Chapter 562, Business Tao Xing? Zhuomo beckoned at Shou Ping authoritatively, indicating for him to come over. In his eyes, Sung Lianer had come to him, so Shou Ping and the Celestial Planet Guard were like the bonus that one got after buying the main product. He felt nothing at ordering the other about. Shou Ping's tendon pulsed. A youth that wasn't even 20 was ordering him about. If this was any other person, he would have smashed them into pieces. Even if you were a fierce man, even if your subordinates were powerful, even if you had a powerful background, you are not the Jie master. But he saw Miss out of the corner of his eyes, and Miss was looking directly at him. His heart jumped. I'll endure it. Shou Ping obediently walked in front of Zhuomo. Sir, is there something you need? Who is Tao Xing? Zhuomo did not waste words and directly asked. The city master of Endless City. Shou Ping thought and felt that if they encountered any danger, they would not be able to escape, so it was best to actually speak seriously of this matter. Endless City is a very famous and large city in Dark Abyss Jie, which is far from here. Tao Xing is most famous for raising Mo embryos. Supposedly, because he had raised Dark Mo embryo, he was given Endless City by the Jie Baster of Dark Abyss Jie. Mo embryos? Zhuomo noticed the flicker of yearning in Yi Ling's eyes. He suddenly recalled that Yi Ling cultivated the mist hand seat and needed MO embryos. Being unable to cultivate a MO physique was one of his regrets. Thus, Tao Xing is a true MO embryo grandmaster and very famous. A thread of desire flashed through Shou Ping's eyes, but he knew this was just a futile hope, so his gaze quickly regained clarity. Zhou Mo suddenly turned and shouted towards the battlefield, "Tao Xing, do you have mist MO embryo?" Shou Ping was stunned. All of Celestial Planet Guard was speechless. A small indiscernible smile appeared on Tseng Lianer's lips. "Grandmaster, will they help?" Tang Fei asked worriedly. Even though Tao Xing was the master of Endless City, but he was familiar with his people and liked being called Grandmaster. Tao Xing was dressed in loose black robes. His face was wizened, but his eyes were alert and gave people the feeling he was a scholar. The situation was urgent, but his face was calm and indicated no panic. He smiled slightly, his tone filled with nonchalance. "This is up to the heavens." Tang Fei bit down on her lips. She was filled with regret and hate. If she had stopped Grandmaster when they departed, Grandmaster would not be in such danger. Tao Xing knew what Tang Fei was thinking. He said with a smile, "Do not blame yourself. This matter is not your fault, you have done very well. With just 500 people you were able to stop 1,500 green yaksha. When word of this gets out, you will be famous." Tang Fei was tall and the form-fitting armor emphasized her body. The light green hair was up in a simple ponytail. Her right hand was on the MO weapon at her waist as she stood handsomely. There was no pride on Tang Fei's face. Her fingers were white as she gripped her MO weapon. Even though she was speaking to City Master, the majority of her attention was on the battlefield. She noticed that Cha Xiong's movement had slowed and instantly felt panic. Tang Fei knew very well that she was able to stop this 1,500 green yaksha with 500 people because Cha Xiong was a skilled fighter. Otherwise, they would have been defeated long ago. If Cha Xiong ran out of energy, the balance would quickly tilt. Suddenly, a voice rang out over the entire battlefield. "Tao Xing, do you have mist MO embryo?" Tang Fei's eyes widened and her expression froze. She felt unspeakably uncomfortable. She had followed Tao Xing for many years, and seen many times that Grandmaster had asked other people for help. But she had never encountered a situation like this. Each of the personages that Grandmaster asked would usually complete the request without a second word. After the matter was dealt with, the Grandmaster would naturally give his thanks, mostly with MO embryos, and the two would establish good relations. She had never met someone who started out by stating conditions. Comparing this, she couldn't help but have a low opinion. As expected, those personages were great and prestigious. Their mannerisms were not anything that greenhorns could have. If they saved Grandmaster, would they fear not having MO embryos? And stating a price at such a crucial time, wasn't this just blackmail? Tang Fei was unhappy and her expression turned dark. Tao Xing stilled. It was the first time he met such a direct person. However, he was usually open-minded and did not care too much. He said loudly, "Sir, what kind of mist MO embryo do you want?" This time, it was Zhuo Mo's turn to pause. "What kind of mist MO embryo?" He turned around and asked Yi Ling, "What kind of mist MO embryo do you need?" The rims of Yi Ling's eyes turned red. When Zhuo Mo asked about the mist MO embryos, his heart started beating wildly. When Zhuo Mo asked him the direct question, a feeling he had never had before filled him. If Darren asked him to die right now, he would charge unhesitatingly. "My king." His lips trembled as he stammered out, "Ash Fei's mist MO embryo?" "Oh, it is Ash Fei's mist MO embryo." Zhuo Mo nodded. He turned and shouted, "Old man, Ash Fei's mist MO embryo." "Old man." Tang Fei almost drew the MO weapon at her waist. Her face was full of fury. This was the first time she had encountered someone so disrespectful towards the city master. She was not the only one. The MO guards around her were also angry. The Celestial Planet Guard, with Shou Ping as the leader, all looked reverently at Zhuo Mo heavens. This person was probably the first one that dared to call Tao Xing old man. Tao Xing chuckled. He felt this person was very interesting. He shouted, "Boy, how many do you want?" He had originally thought the other would ask a great price. He had not imagined that the other just wanted a gray phase mist mo embryo. This wasn't anything to him. It seemed the other was truly a greenhorn. He had made a mistake. Zwa mo instantly realized that his opening price was too low. He only knew a bit about mo embryos, so it was hard to avoid making mistakes. For Zwa mo, who had greediness engraved into his bones, it was harder for him to accept making a mistaken quote than for him to cut off his own flesh. He wanted to ask Yi Ling, but when he saw the other's teary state, Zwa mo felt it would be a waste of time to ask. He decided to just go in. 100. Shou Ping almost fell to the ground. Yi Ling's tears froze in his eyes. He opened his mouth and did not know what to say. Even the green yaksha stilled. 100. Mo embryos. When were mo embryos counted in units of 100? Whoosh! Tang Fei unsheathed the mo weapon at her waist and prepared to fight to the death. Truthfully, she was more willing to go up and chop up that greenhorn. In her eyes, this person was even more horrid than the ugly green yaksha. 100. It was Tao Xing's turn to be stunned. He didn't know what to say. Heavens, 100 mo embryos. Even if it was the gray phase mist mo embryos that were not high level, this number was outrageous. Mo embryos? These were mo embryos. Was that person really mo? This absurd thought rose in Tao Xin's mind. What he did not know was that his thought was so close to the truth. Sorry, I only have 3 gray phase mist mo embryos with me. For some reason, when Tao Xing said this, even he felt slightly embarrassed. Sire, can you consider changing the request to other mo embryos? Just 3. Zwa mo rubbed his chin and pretended to be deep in thought. He hurriedly asked Pu Yao and Wei. Quick, what mo embryos should we get? Pu Yao's thin lips were like blades that drew blood with each swipe. Gold phase mo embryo, day mo embryo, nether shadow mo embryo, cold blade mantis mo embryo, 100 night mo embryo. Wei had a warm and harmonious smile as he added, and nether water clear moon mo embryo, magnetism mo embryo, falling star mo embryo, flashing spirit mo embryo. Zwa mo repeated without missing a word. His voice spread through the entire battlefield. The entire battlefield was completely silent. Everyone was shocked by this mo embryo list. The eyes of all the mo gathered on Zwa mo. In this moment, Zwa mo was the center of attention of thousands. Even the green yaksha were gaping as they looked at Zwa mo like they were seeing a ghost. The eyes of the green yaksha leader turned red. If it wasn't an absolute order this time, he wanted to shout, give them to me, and I will immediately turn around and leave. No, just half, we only want half and we will leave immediately. He suspected when he returned and reported to his superiors, those Darren would also regret not giving him the power to make such a transaction. Tao Xing was like a statue. He was completely stunned. Oh, heavens, how could I have had such a stupid thought just now? How could this person not be a mo that could list so many mo physique names? He had never encountered one like this. The pitiful Tao Xing was still immersed in the other's familiarity of mo embryos. He had not comprehended the mabe that was represented by this string of mo embryos. This is extortion. Tang Fei shouted, unable to bear it any longer. Zwa mo stilled and then said unconcernedly, this is a transaction done willingly on both sides. It's fine if you are not willing. I do not feel that there is anything more valuable than life. You will not make a loss on this transaction. All the mo admired Zwa mo's shamelessness. Tang Fei was unable to respond. Fire burned in her eyes as she wanted to burn Zwa mo into dust. Tao Xing stopped Tang Fei. Even though there was pain on his face, he shouted, this little brother is right, there is nothing more important than life. Alright, I agree. However, the mo embryos are at Endless City. Sir, you will have to send someone to pick them up. Are we going to pass through Dark Abyss Jie? Zwa mo asked Shu Long in a low voice. Shu Long had been very calm all this time. In reality, other than Yi Ling, Nen Yu and a few others, all of the other people in the troop didn't feel anything. They actually felt that Darren was correct. What was more valuable than life? Shu Long nodded. Darren, we will pass through it. Zuemo had a happy expression as he shouted, all right, agreed. The leader of the Green Yaksha instantly felt his heart was empty. Endless disappointment filled his body. This almost drove him insane. So many Mo embryos? He suddenly raised his head, his eyes bloody red as he shrieked, kill them! Kill them! All the Green Yaksha had red eyes and vicious expressions. A troop of just 100 dared to dismiss them. Kill them! Chapter 563, Fight. The majority of the Green Yaksha dove down at them. A layer of green light appeared on their spread wings. Their wings tore apart the air like knives, and the howling was like a rising tide. Their eyes were bloody red, their expressions twisted. The black Missouri matrices glowed on their exposed dark green skin. The green energy gathered at the tips of their wings. When each Yaksha flew, it created two blinding streaks of light. The lights of the swarm were like a chaotic storm, bright and intimidating. Suddenly, they quickly organized into formation with astounding speed. The lights that covered the skies seemed to be compressed together by an invisible hand. They became closely packed together. The green streaks all rose and intercrossed. They spun around each other and attracted each other, pressing towards the center. The light grew in intensity. Looking from afar, they looked like one being, like an enormous green yaksha that was dozens of zhang long. It was like a falling star that crashed down with great force. King Yaksha! Tang Fei shouted, the blood in her face draining out. As a silver battle general, she was familiar with the ultimate killing move of the Green Yaksha battalions. This group of Green Yaksha definitely was not a normal group of bandits. This was a Green Yaksha battalion. Untrained Green Yaksha would not be able to perform King Yaksha. King Yaksha was called the ultimate killing move of a Green Yaksha battalion. It was an extremely difficult maneuver and demanded high coordination from every Green Yaksha involved. Tang Fei tightly gripped her Mo weapon. Her blood-colored lips had drained to a pale white. If the other had used King Yaksha during their battle, they would not have managed to survive until now. Tang Fei had a high opinion of herself, but she never would think that she would be able to stop King Yaksha with just 500 soldiers. This made her realize that others' goal was to capture Grandmaster alive. In a blink, Tang Fei understood what the Green Yaksha were planning. But what was the use in knowing? She had never felt so helpless, never. King Yaksha. She wouldn't die a worthless death if it was in the hands of such a battalion, one that could perform King Yaksha. Tang Fei felt hopeless. The crossing lights from the Green Yaksha dazzled the eyes. The green rays of light that were dozens of zhang long almost stole the color from the sun. Shou Ping's expression changed. He almost shouted at the top of his lungs, "Snake coil!" The celestial planet guard's formations suddenly changed. Like a snake, the guard curled up its body. This was the defense formation that the celestial planet guard was most skilled in. But Shou Ping didn't feel any confidence. That was King Yaksha. It was one of the most famed ultimate techniques of a Green Yaksha battalion. It was used as one of the standards to measure the strength of a Green Yaksha battalion. A battalion that could perform King Yaksha was not an average Green Yaksha battalion. Shou Ping's eyes were filled with blood as he bit down hard on his teeth. Celestial Planet Guard was strong offensively and weak defensively. If this was any other time, he would just charge and fight it out. The Green Yaksha had their King Yaksha, but Celestial Planet Guard had their own ultimate techniques. However, Miss was here. No matter the time and setting, protecting Miss was the most important mission. Damn it. He looked urgently towards Mississippi. However, he found that Miss was looking serenely at Zuemo as though she did not see the King Yaksha forming in the air. Was she? His mind shifted and he abruptly turned his head. And he saw Zuemo raise his left hand. Zuemo's left hand was in a fist, his arm drawn back above his waist, his weight on his back foot, his figure slightly twisted to one side. The howling in the air seemed to suddenly disappear. A strange feeling rose. This was... Shou Ping's eyes suddenly widened. An invisible ripple reverberated like that of a drum and transferred to every person behind him with Mo as the center. Boom boom. Dong dong. Every beat was strong and firm, penetrating to the mind. Everyone's blood and muscles seemed to feel a fatal attraction and pulsed out of their control. The beats were stirring. With every beat, everyone unconsciously adjusted their power to the rhythm. Countless ruler-straight dots of light flew from Shu Long and the other guard camp members. Like metal attracted to a magnet, they entered Mo's raised left fist. In a blink, Mo's left fist was covered in an almost tangible black light. The sun script at the center of Mo's chest lit up. Threads of golden light extended out of Mo's left hand and mixed beautifully within the black energy. Boom boom boom. The rhythmic beating speed up like the hurried gallop of a horse. The black energy on Mo's hand increased. All the hardship guards behind Mo that were covered in heavy armor vibrated uncontrollably. Every beat caused them to feel excitement. Their fighting spirit rose like flames in the wind and burned the blood in their bodies. The power in their bodies uncontrollably pulsed with Darren's pace as though they were communicating to Darren. When their fighting spirit reached a peak and their blood boiled, a low voice could be heard from the front of the troop. Kill! Almost unconsciously, all the fighting spirit, all the trembling, all of it found an opening to vent from and burst out. Everyone roared with all of their strength. Kill! Every hardship guard punched out hard. 100 thick, almost tangible black energies left their hands. Once these black energies left the fists of the hardship guards, they seemed to be attracted and flew towards Mo's fist. The black energy on Mo's fist increased over 10 times its size. The black energy wrapped around his wrist, wrapped around his arm, and flowed down following the angle of his arm. With a spark of inspiration, Mo did not punch D with that shout of kill and forced himself to patiently wait. Until now. Like it was restrained with heavy chains, Mo's left hand seemed to take great effort to move as he punched towards the sky. Time seemed to suddenly slow down. Mo's actions seemed to be in slow motion. The ground underneath him started to tremble. A pebble trembled and was drawn by an attracting force and breaking free of the ground. It slowly rose, and then crumbled under the pressure, turning into dust. A handful of dust floated upwards. The scene was eerie to see. A deep humming came out of nowhere and slowly grew in intensity. When the soil crumbed, the sound was a roar. Boom! Everyone's ears were flooded by this sound. Time seemed to instantly resume its flow and Mo's left fist punched out forcefully. The black energy was like a black dragon darting out of a deep abyss. Carrying a deep and domineering killing essence, it crashed into the King Yaksha rushing downwards. This scene was so domineering almost everyone stopped breathing. The black and green forces crashed together without any finesse. Boom! The opening clash caused an enormous explosion as though it was the climax of the entire battle. Everyone's body was numb. Shocked, they were unable to respond when the terrifying explosion's shock wave reached them like a tsunami. Those that were slow in reacting were blown away. Their faces were draped in terror. Moments later, they struggled to stand up. But when they raised their heads, their terror froze on their faces as they stood petrified. A black energy rained down over the battlefield. There were golden threads that glittered among the black energy like the sunlight during the darkest storm, bright and unparalleled. And that intimidatingly loud group of green Yaksha had been erased from the air and didn't leave a trace behind. The rain of energy that carried dots of golden light added an aura of mystery to the sky. Even though it was daytime, Tang Fei didn't feel any warmth. Her limbs were cold as though it was the dark of midnight during the coldest day. Her face was as white as paper, even the last bit of blood had drained away. That scene, just that short instant, spread inside her like a powerful poison. 400 green Yaksha. She had great visual acuity and her eyes were almost never wrong. She could see how many green Yaksha had rushed at this group of despicable people that appeared. The 400 Yaksha that were performing the King Yaksha were completely destroyed by a troop of 100. Not one was left. The entire battle amounted to just one exchange. If other people told her about this, Tang Fei would definitely feel it was a joke, But right now, she couldn't laugh. No one was able to laugh. Shou Ping's limbs also felt cold. His face was raised as he looked dazedly at the sky. His expression was frozen, and the other celestial planet guards were even worse. They seemed to be soulless. Even an amateur could see the deep terror in their eyes. Tseng Lianer had a look in her eyes. She was also very shocked. However, while the other people were shocked by the 100-man troop, she was shocked by something else. The remaining 300 green Yakshas' morale completely crumbled. They scattered as though they were crazy. They were completely robbed of courage, their battalion routed. Many Yaksha were flying in unstable patterns and faltered as they fled, as though they would fall over at any moment. There was only terror on their faces. They would probably never forget this battle. No one laughed at the Green Yaksha. They believed that no battalion could not crumble under a situation like this. Even those who were just watching this brief fight had also lost their courage to face this troop. They looked at Zhuo Mo's group as though they were looking at demons that had crawled out of the 9 hells of the underworld. Respect and fear. This battle imprinted respect and fear into the bones of these people so deep that they would not forget it in this lifetime. This youth that didn't even look 20 years old was a true demon. Only those noble and evil Mo would have such terrifying power. The yells of the terrified Green Yaksha faded into the distance. The enormous battlefield became silent. The other people were still struggling in their terror while Shu Long and the others were savoring the attack. Shu Long was full of admiration towards Darren. That move had just been the little Mo kill of the Crow Fiend Mo killing formation. Darren had just made a small transformation to the attack, and the power had increased by more than 10 times. Darren was born to be a battle general. Zhuo Mo did not know what Shu Long was thinking, but he was also savoring the move just now. That pause and spark of inspiration. He felt as though he had touched upon something. Chapter 564, New Discovery General Level. Was this the power of the general level? Zhuo Mo thought back to the feeling he just had, that spontaneous pause. The change was not a major one, yet the power had drastically changed. Guiding the influx of power but not immediately attacking with it required a higher level of control. If he had tried this in the past, after the guard camp members shouted "kill," he would not have been able to. If the roaring killing essence was not used immediately in an attack, it would have backlashed against him. Control, this was the power of control, the control made possible at the general level. He finally understood somewhat why all the Mo battle generals were strong people. Gathering the power of tens of thousands into one point, other than astounding coordination, it also required an astounding ability to control oneself. The influx of power would cause those with weak bodies would have exploded long ago. Just now, he suddenly found a wondrous use of Shen power. Shen power could greatly increase the stress tolerance of his body. For normal this might not be important, but for a Mo battle general, this was crucial. The manipulation of Shen power was Zhuo Mo's weakness all this time. Both Tseng Lianer's and Agui's Shen power manipulation was exquisite. It was invisible and impossible to defend against, as well as being amazingly strong. But Zhuo Mo could not reach their level. His manipulation of Shen power was extremely crude. The gold leaf he obtained was like a book of the heavens, hard to read and harder to understand. He only used Shen power to cultivate his 3 powers. It was faster to cultivate Shen power than the 3 powers individually. Agui could not speak, and Zhuo Mo didn't even consider asking Tseng Lianer for advice. He had decided to explore himself. Until today. That pause allowed him to find a completely new channeling method of Shen power. Zhuo Mo did not have eldest Shixiang's persistence and resolve. His periods of hard work were usually done to allow him to slack off in the future, but he was undoubtedly a smart person. When he found that Shen power would be channeled along with his Mo physique, he instantly asked himself, could Shen power be added into Ling power? Could it merge with his spiritual consciousness? When these thoughts popped up, he became excited. Having had a good taste, Zhuo Mo wanted to start experimenting immediately. However, he could only think about it at the moment. There were affairs to take care of right now. Right, there was profitable business. Everyone gradually recovered from the deathly silence and the terror-stricken expressions faded. But when their eyes swept across Zhuemo and the others, they couldn't help but shudder. Celestial planet guards silently distanced themselves from Zhuemo's group. If it wasn't that Miss was here, they would have most likely turned and ran back to Shattered Stone Jia by now. Even Shou Ping started to miss the peaceful environment of Shattered Stone Jia. However, he noticed that Miss was not shocked by the success of guard camp. "Make some tea," Sung Lianer serenely spoke. Siener seemed to wake up from a dream and started to boil water. However, there was still terror on her face and her hands were trembling. Sung Lianer glanced at her. She faintly said, "Let me do it." Purple charcoal stove, black mud pot, a little tea table, a bamboo tea place, a sky blue little pot, white cups, and Sung Lianer sitting there with her layered dress was like the flower blooming in the night. Her movements were elegant, her expression serene. Her seductive face was peerless. She seemed to be at ease as though she was in her own home. Sitting amongst the disordered battlefield, she was unusually eye-catching. The members of Celestial Plant Guard stared at each other and then they felt slight embarrassment. Miss was so composed and calm, but they had felt the urge to flee. This was an embarrassment. The restless Celestial Plant Guard quickly calmed down. "This subordinate is useless." Shou Ping admitted his crime with an ashamed expression. Seng Lianer took a light sip, her long eyelashes blurry among the steam. The beautiful face became more ethereal as she said serenely, "It is good for you to see the power of the general level." General level. Shou Ping's eyes widened, his expression disbelieving. "Heavens, he's so young. Starting from today, you will all obey his orders." Seng Lianer's voice passed into Shou Ping's ears through the rising steam of the tea. "This." Shou Ping hesitated. They were Tseng Yi's personal guard, yet Miss was telling them to listen to the orders of another person. Shou Ping naturally could not help but feel resistant. Sung Lianer continued to drink tea and her eyes didn't even look up as though the person who spoke wasn't her. Shou Ping gathered his courage and voiced the puzzlement he felt. "Miss, this subordinate does not understand what Miss wants? This person is of unknown origins and his future vicious and hard to predict. You are disobeying?" Seng Lianer put down her teacup, her serene voice carrying an ice-cold tone. "This subordinate does not dare." Shou Ping's broke out in a cold sweat. He knew Miss' temper very well. If he hesitated at all, Miss would execute him without a second word. "Go," Seng Lianer said lightly as though nothing had happened. In the span of time that this word was said, Shou Ping's back had been soaked. He couldn't help but sigh inside. Miss had more presence than the gem master did at this age. He didn't dare to inquire further and retreated. But when he almost reached guard camp, he suddenly recalled. What did Miss mean by, "go"? Shou Ping grimaced. "This one is Tao Xing. Many thanks, little brother, for your aid," Tao Xing said politely to Zhuemo. Just now, the power that Zhuemo had shown shocked him. He was curious who Zhuemo was. Such a strong youth could not be unknown. "No need for thanks, this is just business." Zhuemo waved his hand with an unconcerned expression. Tang Fei's face turned black. It would have been fine if Zhuemo didn't mention it. Now that he did, she recalled this person's past actions. It made her furious. The other had blackmailed them. Robbed them using threats. In her eyes, a person who acted so at such a crucial time had terrible conduct. While she was angry, she suppressed it. Even now, that astounding attack was still lingering in her mind. "What should I call little brother? Where are you from?" Tao Xing smiled and asked. He was able to accept this. Even though the price caused him some pain, but it was worth it to save his life. Also, now the other would go to Endless City with them, so their safety during this journey now had a very good guarantee. "Just call me Azwa." Zhuemo was an old-timer and understood what the other was probing for. He acted as though he did not hear Tao Xing's second question. Tao Xing did not care and said with a smile, "Azwa is so young and has reached general level, your future is limitless." On the side, Tang Fei's expression changed. General level. This person with terrible virtues was actually general level. She then had an expression of realization. No wonder this person was so powerful. Tang Fei's strength was pretty good, but she was still brigadier level. Among the MO, brigadier MO were usually silver battle generals, and gold battle generals had to be general level and above. Was this person a gold battle general? Tang Fei shook her head inside. She felt her thought was too absurd. Such a young gold battle general. That would only appear in the most prestigious of MO noble families. This person in front of her was unrivaled in greed. What mannerisms of a prestigious upbringing did he have? How long until we reach Dark Abyss Jie? Zhua Mo asked Tao Xing. Tao Xing thought and said, about a month or so. And let's keep hurrying along. Zhua Mo clearly did not have any interest in talking and ended the conversation. Tao Xing was slightly shocked. No matter where he went, he was respected and taken care of. It was the first time that he had encountered someone like Zhua Mo that didn't even have an interest in talking. A person without manners. Tang Fei added another criticism of Zhua Mo to her list. Zhua Mo did notice that there were many eyes observing the battle from the shadows. However, due to the intimidation of Zhua Mo's terrifying attack, those hidden scouts felt fear, so they only followed from a distance. They feared that if they approached, the other would crush them to bits. Immersed in his investigations, Zhua Mo did not detect that the name of guard camp had gained infamy. This battle had caused some ruckus when news that they had killed 400 green Yaksha with one blow. Facing the King Yaksha and still being able to destroy the enemy with one blow, the strength of the battalion was evident. Intelligence on the leader of guard camp was quickly gathered by this group. All kinds of mirages appeared. Guard camp's history was very mysterious. No one knew their origins, nor did they know what faction they belonged to. But what attracted the attention of most people was Zhua Mo. So young, and in general level, this attracted everyone's attention. Many people speculated on Zhua Mo's background, but there were no results. But Zhua Mo did not know that his business deal had also tempted many of the powers hiding in the shadows. This really was a great big piece of business. Zhua Mo did not pay attention to Tao Xing's group. He urgently wanted to test out the ideas in his head. He wanted to go into seclusion. However, that clearly was not realistic. He could only think as he traveled. He quickly managed to come up with some techniques. He is a good MO battle general. Wei had been paying attention to Zhua Mo's experiments. In this period of time, Zhua Mo had asked him numerous times for advice, especially in the area of battle generals. Zhua Mo was not skilled in Yao fighting methods, but he would rapidly understand the Mo battle methods and come up with new ideas that caused Wei to frequently sigh in amazement. Pu Yao's expression was displeased. Every day, he was in the 10-finger prison and tormented the Yao battalions. The pitiful Nan Yu, Song Zhe, and others traveled during the day and spent all of their remaining time in the 10-finger prison. It was extremely hard for them. However, Nan Yu and the others gritted their teeth and managed to endure. This journey had caused them to understand that there was nothing more important than strength in troubled times. What depressed Pu Yao was that there was nothing happening in his search of Yao while Weiss blood summons had gotten responses. Damn it! At this time, Pu Yao abruptly stopped. He suddenly stood up, a light flashing through his bloody pupil as he disappeared. A Yao had responded to the summons. Chapter 565, Yao Summons Response. Pu Yao was in a complex mood. He walked very slowly. Even though he entered the 10-finger prison like usual, there seemed to a different power that caused him to feel a rare nervousness. The past few thousands of years were like a vast river that divided the past and present. Some things had blurred in his memory, but some things were as clear as though he had saw them yesterday. When a rebellious figure entered his vision, his nervous emotions suddenly calmed down. Thousands of years, the glory had long dissipated and only left behind a sigh. Already mentally prepared, Pu Yao did not feel demotivated. The light blue crystal that he seemed to recognize caused his thoughts to blur and felt slightly moved. You are a child of the Yuqin family? Pu Yao's tone was indifferent. The other examined Pu Yao from top to bottom, his voice filled with suspicion. You left behind the news? He was not tall, and there was an irregular blue crystal on his forehead. His eyes were long and narrow, a rebellious smile at the corner of his mouth. The fiery red hair was like a burning ball of flame and gave people the feeling of disobedience. "Yes, it was me," Pu Yao said indifferently. "So pretentious." The youth snorted. "Hey, old person, who are you really?" "Old person?" Pu Yao's eyes narrowed slightly. There had never been a person that dared to call him this. He snorted, and without visibly moving, countless chains of light erupted from under the youth and tied him up. The youth's expression changed slightly, but he did not surrender. "Old guy, there's no accomplishment in bullying little children. Are you the only one left in the Yuqin family?" Pu Yao asked coldly. "Just Yi is left." The youth widened his eyes and raised his head. "How about it? Don't think that you can pretend in front of Yi with some conning Yao arts." Then he seemed to say to himself, "If I knew this long ago, I wouldn't have listened to the old man. What stupid thing, what Darren, is this an evil cult?" Pu Yao did not seem to hear him. "What is your name?" "Yuqin Lai." The youth rolled his eyes. The other person's power was beyond his predictions. "A good name," Pu Yao said expressionlessly. He then asked, "Where are you living now?" "Jail." The youth snickered. "A Beigu jail, maximum security? How about it?" "Very strong." "Why are you in jail?" Pu Yao asked. I killed a bastard from a prestigious family, motherfucker. I'll kill his entire family if I see them again." Yuqin Lai said hatefully. "You have a grudge against him?" "No." Yuqin Lai's head moved up, his eyes bloodshot and his hair seemed to burn. That bastard raped my friend's younger sister. He spent 3 months before finding a chance to kill him." 3 months? You are really weak." Pu Yao smirked coldly. "You can try." Yuqin Lai looked disdainfully at Pu Yao. He had at least 20 guards, and has 2 people guarding the door even when he is doing that thing. "Please, it is a prestigious family, the Yao arts they cultivate is much stronger than yes. However, he got tricked by Yi, I almost killed all of them." "Prestigious family." Pu Yao smirked inside and then asked, "You can come into the 10-finger prison from jail?" Those idiots, they think putting Jinji on you will work. How can they know yes skills? Getting into 10-finger prison is child's play." Yuqin Lai said smugly. A thread of light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil. He continued, "Has your father has spoken to you of your mission?" "That old man." Yuqin Lai's tone was unconcerned, but his rebellious gaze suddenly became warmer. He shook his head. "Hey, it's not that Yi wants to miss this, but Yi is in jail and cannot help. Just escape the prison." Pu Yao said coldly. "Escape the prison?" Yuqin Lai seemed to hear the greatest joke and roared with laughter. "This is a Beigu jail, maximum security prison. I've never heard of anyone escaping this prison." A ball of light suddenly appeared in Pu Yao's hand. He pressed his hand against Yuqin Lai's forehead. The ball of light seemed to be soaked up by a sponge and entered Yuqin Lai's head. "Hey, what are you doing?" Yuqin Lai's voice held a thread of panic. But his eyes suddenly widened as he said disbelievingly, "This is—" "You have 10 days to escape the prison," Pu Yao said coldly. "If you cannot escape, then die inside it." Finishing, Pu Yao disappeared. Yuqin Lai didn't seem to hear him. His mouth was wide, his face shocked and his eyes unfocused as though he was possessed. Ida felt his heart was drumming. He had always lived in Little Savage Jia. After Little Savage Jia changed hands, he entered Sherdong Darren's battalion due to Sherdong Darren's reputation. At the start, the days had been pretty good. Even though the cultivation was high intensity, no one complained. The more hardship they experienced when training, the easier it would be to survive when they fought on the battlefield. There was nothing to say about Sherdong Darren's skill. Great Day Hardship Guard was a MO skill on a level that they used to dream about, and it stirred up everyone's desire to cultivate. There was no need for supervision. Everyone furiously cultivated. On the battlefield, Sherdong Darren had been undefeated and taken down all of Little Savage Jia. Everyone was filled with hope about the future. Yet at this time, They had suddenly received Sherdong Daren's order. They needed to go to a place called Turtle Island and receive special training. Special training? No one had heard this before. He had asked everyone, including the people that had followed Darren for a long time. Special training? They all shook their heads and spoke of their ignorance on the matter. Everyone desired to go to Turtle Island because the old-timers of the battalion would tell them how great that place was. Most importantly, the king was there. Yes, right now, everyone knew that Sherdong Daren and Yi Ling Daren had sworn allegiance to a Daren. This Daren was called the one that was most likely to become king. King, for the MO of Little Mountain Jie, was a faraway term. But no one doubted Sherdong Daren and Yi Ling Daren's judgment. Almost everyone believed that they were following a powerful person that could possibly become king. Turtle Island was completely different than what Ida had imagined. This place was filled with Xiozha. This MO army that entered Turtle Island for the first time almost turned and ran. Fortunately, everyone later found that Turtle Island didn't just have Xiozha. There were MO and also Yao. Thinking back to everyone's expressions at that time, Ida found it was humorous. Actually, he hadn't been much better. He quickly found that no matter if it was Yaoma or Xiozha, they could all coexist peacefully here. Even though there would be unfriendly gazes, but no one would fight you just because you were MO. Only now did Ida completely believe in the power of the king. Before this, no one was able to do this. As expected of the man that was most likely to become king, Ida quickly started to like this place and like the atmosphere. However, as they became familiar with Turtle Island, the special training that had been spoken of for so long finally arrived. Ida carefully entered the room as instructed, and 7 to 8 pairs of eyes instantly stared at him. Ida instantly became nervous. What made him even more nervous was that these people were all Xiozha. Even though there was no fighting between Yaoma and Xiozha on Turtle Island, he couldn't help but feel unsafe being stared at by a group of Xiozha. Don't be nervous. A question first, your bloodline? Some of Shell Crocodile, but just a little bit, Ida hurriedly said. Shell Crocodile, not a bad bloodline, Colonel level. We can engrave the Shell Crocodile MO matrix for you and awaken the Shell Crocodile blood inside of you to increase your combat strength about 2 times. Of course, the specific effects will only be seen afterwards. Also, the choice is in your hands. The one who was speaking was Master Sun Bao. Engrave a MO matrix? Ida's face was puzzled. Do you know Matrix Awakening Masters? Yes. A bit more high level than that. Ida finally understood some of this. His heart couldn't help but move. He asked, I have awakened my MO matrix already? Can I still get a MO matrix engraved? Yes. I'm willing. Ida was afraid the other would withdraw the offer knowing he had already been awakened. He finally understood what special training was. Ida's quick and decisive responsive surprised Sun Bao and the others. They had originally thought that the other would hesitate. They had even prepared a great deal of methods of persuasion, but the other didn't even think before agreeing. Xiozha could not understand the desire MO had towards strength. But since Ida agreed, then engraving the MO matrix naturally started. When they learned that Zwe MO had encountered danger and needed help, Sun Bao and Ji Wei had started to discuss how they could help Darren. Coincidentally, Zwe MO had sent back some information on the matrix awakening methods he had learned. The duo's eyes lit up and then found that the MO matrix could help Darren. MO were most suited to move in the MO realms. Therefore, they organized all the power of Golden Crow Camp and started to study the content that Zwe MO had sent back about MO matrices. The present Golden Crow Camp were not the greenhorns of the past. No matter if it was individual strength or collective strength, they had multiplied many times. Adding on that everyone was unprecedentedly united, the entire plan progressed rapidly. Pu Yao and Wei also helped out in this process. Zwe MO had pioneered the process of engraving MO matrices on Dongzi. Golden Crow Camp quickly familiarized themselves, and compared to the MO matrix Zwe MO carved on Dongzi, Golden Crow Camp had more skill. Their methods were more developed and effective. But because engraving could not escape the basic requirement of bloodlines, Guard Camp was temporarily unable to undergo the process. The two masters put their focus on the other MO battalion, Grey Camp. Lil misapproved their MO engraving plan on the spot. Therefore, there was the special training order. Ed did not hesitate. He never dreamt that something good like this would land on his head. He had once heard that Ho's Matrix Awakening Masters could activate the blood in people's bodies to the greatest extent, but there were no outstanding Matrix Awakening Masters in Little Savage Jia. The effects of Ed's Matrix Awakening had been very terrible. Otherwise, he believed that he would not just be the strength he had now. No one had expected that a completely new era had started like this. In the name of war. Chapter 566, Bu Heng. How was it? Wei asked Pu Yao. A boy from the Yuqing family, Pu Yao said indifferently. Yuqing family, Wei nodded with a reminiscing expression. A very powerful family, but I think that their tempers are not good. The boy is the same. Pu Yao's tone softened greatly. However, his talent is not bad. How do you plan on using him? Wei asked. Let's see if he can pass the test. Pu Yao snorted coldly and suddenly asked, How are your blood summons? There are two responses, Wei said with a sigh. It has been too long. The other families probably have died out. 2 is enough, Pu Yao said indifferently. Yes. Wei smiled slightly. Adding on the boy from the Yuqing family, 3 of them. It is time for the seed planted thousands of years ago to sprout. Trash is just trash. They cannot even accomplish such a small matter. In the hall, Bu Heng's cold voice echoed. He ignored the ugly expressions of the other people. He was not tall, but standing there he was full of pride. That is Butcher Guard Camp. 100 slaughtering 3,000, who can guarantee victory. A green yaksha stood up and tried to defend. Trash do not need reasons, Bu Heng said indifferently. He didn't even look at this green yaksha as though the other was only air. What does a Heng think about this? The clan leader slowly said. His face was dark. Regardless of Tao Xing, we must win this fight. Bu Heng did not dodge the gaze of the clan leader and said coldly. The world is in chaos. Our Green Yaksha clan is not a strong one, and cannot afford to lose. Even this guard camp that popped out of nowhere was easily able to defeat us. Sooner or later, we will become prey for other people. The expressions of the other Green Yaksha became uglier. They knew that Bu Heng was right. There were many branches of Yaksha, and the Green Yaksha were just one of those. The reason that people were wary of the Green Yaksha was not because their blood was noble, nor because they were strong, but because of their vicious conduct. People were afraid of being targeted. Yes, the clan leader slowly said, our Green Yaksha clan is able to grow and prosper due to the fame of our viciousness. No one dares to offend us. If we do not defend our reputation, we will become a weak target in the eyes of other people. Then it will not be far from the day of our destruction. Bu Heng, you are the strongest battle general in the clan. This time, you will go. I only have one demand, come back with their heads, except for Tao Xing. The clan leader's expression was filled with murderousness. Yes. Bu Heng did not waste words. After bowing, he retreated from the hall. Bu Heng? Now this is interesting. Shimin Ning played with the wine cup in his hand and said amusedly. His body was heavily built, he had large eyes and thick bows. There was a necklace of bones hanging from his neck. He was half naked and the curves of his muscles prominent, as if carved. People would not doubt that his body contained great power. Boss, what about us? Should we act first? Bu Heng has some skill. One subordinate said urgently. Some skill? Your tone is so great. Shimaning laughed. He's a gold battle general, the strongest battle general of the Green Yaksha clan. Even in all of 100 Savage Realm, he can rank in the charts. Boss, you are pushing others up and pushing yourself down. Bu Heng is a gold battle general, but so are you. The Green Yaksha is scary to hear, but our Black Ghost Corps is not Weika. In terms of rank, our Black Ghost Corps is in front of Heng Battalion, another subordinate inserted. He was called a Qing, deeply trusted by Shimin Ning and his right and left hands. Shimin Ning smiled and said, "You are interested?" "Boss, none of us have MO physiques," Aching said. Shimin Ning sat up. He was clearly persuaded by Aching's words. Because there were no MO embryos, his closest subordinates were unable to obtain a MO physique. He said, "Then we have to plan well. Bu Heng is not easy to deal with. There probably are a lot of people targeting this fat piece of meat." The people below had joyous expressions. Tang Fei suppressed the displeasure she felt and walked in front of Zuemo. She said coldly, "Sir, there are people watching us from the shadows." Surprise flashed through Zuemo's eyes. He nodded and said, "I know." Looking at the other's unconcerned expression, for some reason, the fire burning inside Tang Fei erupted, but she managed to suppress it. "Sir, I suggest that it is best for us to increase our speed and pass through this area. It is very dangerous here." "Speed up." Zuemo shook his head. "The speed right now is very good." It wasn't that Zuemo did not want to speed up. For guard camp, speed was their weakness. If they sped up, it would drastically increase the energy expenditure of guard camp. If they encountered danger, they would be left in a reactive position. Zuemo didn't dare to use anything like the nimbus clouds in a Mojia. Tang Fei finally could not suppress herself from mocking. "I think that, sir, you do not understand the habits of the Green Yaksha. They will send people to attack again and again. They will not rest. The Green Yasha will send their trump card, Bu Heng." "Bu Heng? Who is that? Are they strong?" Zuemo asked interestedly. The people around him were unfamiliar with this area. Even Shou Ping was not familiar. Tang Fei's brow creased. "Sir, do not joke. How can you not know the name of Bu Heng?" "I don't know." Zuemo spread his hands with an innocent expression. "You." Tang Fei's brows arched. At this time, a light cough came from behind her. It was Tao Xing. "Lil Tang, let's talk." "Mr. Zua does not understand the situation around here, so you should give an explanation." Tang Fei had opinions about Zuemo, but since Tao Xing spoke, she could not do a thing. She said irritably, "Bu Heng, the most famous genius of the Green Yaksha clan. He didn't just enter general level when he was 20, he is also a gold battle general." General level, gold battle general. Zuemo couldn't help but pay attention. These two phrases allowed him to understand how strong this Bu Heng was. Did he really not know? Tang Fei saw that Zuemo did not seem to pretend and was puzzled. She continued, "Bu Heng's battalion is called the Heng Battalion. It is ranked 93rd of all battalions in 100 Savage Realm and has never been defeated before." A battalion ranked 93rd in 100 Savage Realm. Zuemo inhaled sharply and his expression grew grave. A battalion that ranked 93rd in 100 Savage Realm was a terrifying ranking. It intimidated Zuemo more than the terms of general level and gold battle general. It had to be said that even Zuemo's Vermilion Bird Camp could not rank in the top 100 of any realm in the 4 realms. Any battalion that could rank in the top 100 of any realm was an extremely powerful battalion. Were there only 100 Jie in one realm? The factions were numerous and the number of battalions were just as innumerable. A battalion that could reach the top 100 of thousands of battalions was definitely a powerful existence. Even though his own strength had grown recently, the power of a battalion was not something that could be defeated by his individual power. A strong feeling of danger surrounded Zuemo. "What solution do you have?" Zuemo asked directly. "It will be best for us to hurry to Great Peace City." Tang Fei's tone was confident. "No battalion dares to offend Great Peace City." Great Peace City? Zuemo's expression was blank. Tang Fei was extremely depressed. Did this strong person in front of her not know anything? He didn't even know Great Peace City? "It is a city near us. The biggest primary town in the surrounding 9 Jia. How do we get there?" "In the direction we are going," Tang Fei said. She reminded, "But we need to speed up." When Zuemo explained why they could not increase their speed, Tang Fei's expression instantly became strange. In Middle Granary Jia, Vermilion Bird Camp that had been unstoppable all this time finally met its match. This MO battalion was exceptionally troublesome. After a few hundred rounds of contact, no one had gained the advantage. The two faced off in the air. Lil Miss examined the other battalion. After fighting for a few days, he had a direct understanding of this MO battalion. The others' formation was not organized, but their average strength was very strong. A battalion of not even 1,000 people had an average of 1 brigadier per 20 people. Just this number far surpassed Vermilion Bird Camp. The others' tactics were very nimble and rapid. This was the strongest battalion that Lil Miss had ever encountered. Just like Lil Miss, the battle general of this battalion was examining Vermilion Bird Camp. Ajagu closely examined this Shioja battalion. After he led the battalion across the Chaos Rift, he had been undefeated and had not expended any effort until he encountered this battalion in front of him. In the 3 days of fighting, he hadn't gained any advantage. This shocked him. The other battalion's average strength was a whole level lower, but they were well matched in combat. Ajagu was clear that this meant he had actually lost. The others' tactical skill was higher than his. This was the only way they could make up for the lack of strength in the battalion. Ajagu couldn't help but feel respect. He suddenly flew in front of the formation and said loudly, "In these 3 days, we have had a good fight. Sir's tactics are high-leveled and Ajagu feels admiration. May you tell your name so Ajagu can remember it?" A weak-looking youth walked to the front of the battalion. Turtle Island, Gong Sun Cha. Ajagu's face was filled with shock. He hadn't expected the one that was a match for him was such a weak-looking youth. As expected, heroes come from those young. Ajagu admires you. Ajagu said sincerely. He suddenly said, Ajagu is willing to retreat from this Jie and hopes to become friends with little brother Gong Sun. The other's words surprised Gong Sun Cha. He did not immediately answer and asked, "How shall we be friends?" Chapter 567, The Seeds Sprouting. Ida opened his eyes. The world in front of him was clearer than it had ever been. Feeling the swell of strength inside, a heart-moving feeling rose. His tears rolled down silently. Power. This was the flavor of power. The desire of a MO towards power was almost ingrained in their bones. Power that he had dreamed about flowed inside his body. He had never felt such great power before, but he almost immediately understood. Brigadier level. This was the power of brigadier level. The light was so bright, the world was so beautiful, the future was so deserving of anticipation. Gong Sun Cha's expression was dark. He was not in a good mood. It was not a bad result to ally with Ajagu, but for someone like Lil Miss that was unusually stubborn about victory, this was not something to be proud of. The expressions of his soldiers were also terrible. This was the least enjoyable battle that Vermilion Bird Camp had ever fought. The others surpassed them in strength, and it had been hard for them to fight. If it hadn't been that Lil Miss had been higher in tactical ability, they would have been defeated long ago. This was something hard for the proud Vermilion Bird Camp to accept. Everyone's eyes flashed with unwillingness as though fire was burning. When had Vermilion Bird Camp been left in such a sorry state? When had Vermilion Bird Camp dragged down Lil Miss Darren? When had Vermilion Bird Camp ever been forced to accept an alliance? Lil Miss coldly swept everyone and hurried all of them out without any words. Calming down, he could finally consider the gains and losses from this alliance. Ajagu did not have any ambitions about Middle Granary Jie, and it was clear that Ajagu had many other considerations. Gong Sun Cha felt that this was the reason that Ajagu had formed an alliance with them. Ajagu probably felt pressures from other quarters and could not spend too much effort on Middle Granary Jie. Adding on that he found Lil Miss was harder to defeat than expected, he had decided to offer an alliance. They had taken over Middle Granary Jie, but Gong Sun Cha's goal was not Middle Granary Jie but the Chaos Rift that went from Middle Granary Jie to the MO territories. This plan had undoubtedly failed. Ajagu might have said good words, but if he really sent forces into the MO Jie, the other would instantly break the alliance. It really was a headache. Lil Miss rubbed his head. How was Shixiang doing? Did he encounter any trouble? Only when he encountered truly powerful factions did he learn what he lacked. The smoothness in the past had numbed everyone to reality. He thought of the numerous brigadiers in the others' ranks, and then the Jindan of Vermilion Bird Camp. In comparison, the number they had was pitiful. This was a major difference. This kind of difference was not something that could be made up in a short amount of time. How strong a sect was did not depend on how many experts it had, but what the skill of its disciples were. The former could appear due to fortuitous occurrences, but the other could only be reached through the accumulation of resources and time. Gong Sun Cha did not have any good solutions. He knew that Vermilion Bird Camp was already working very hard on their cultivation. Their cultivation methods were not the most outstanding, but it was still better than average sections. Adding on the engraved formations, they could take Ling power from Jingshi and were much better than normal sections. However, when they encountered a truly strong power, he found that their advantages, in front of other people's accumulations of hundreds and even thousands of years, was so weak. A paper crane suddenly landed in Lil Miss' palm. Lil Miss stilled and opened the paper crane. His pupils contracted and a rare expression of joy appeared on his face. Yu Qinlai was racing through the night. This was already the third day since he escaped the prison. The jail had definitely discovered that he had left. However, he was not worried. He was full of confidence in his Yao arts. Even though he had just comprehended the Yao arts that Pu Yao gave him, he had spent only 1 day in order to comprehend them. He then spent 3 days to secretly break through the Jinji on his body and used the Yao arts to make a realistic illusion before spending a day to find a path to escape. He only spent 5 days before successfully breaking out of the jail. Free, the first thing he went to do was go to 10-Finger Prison to find Pu. He was rebellious, but he was an honorable person. Disregarding the last words of his father before death, it had been the Yao arts that Pu Yao gave him that helped him escape. In his view, this was a favor that saved his life. As to whether or not the other was using him, he did not care. Since Pu Yao had saved this life, he could give it back to Pu Yao. Yu Qinlai's thinking was simple. He did not hesitate and raced towards a Yao art house according to Pu Yao's instructions. The Yao art house in front of him was very normal and there didn't seem to be anything special. Carefully following Pu Yao's directions, he found a stele in a nondescript corner of the Yao art house. He cast a strange Yao art. The stele silently cracked and revealed the stone coffin underneath. Just as Pu Yao had said, the stone coffin was empty. Yu Qinlai felt slightly hesitant, but he gathered his resolve and laid down in the stone coffin as Pu Yao had instructed. At the worst, he would give this life back to the other. Yu Qinlai watched as the stone coffin closed. The darkness covered him. Shui Yu's face was covered in dust. He looked very tired from days of traveling. There had been fighting occurring all along the trip. Some were fights between Mo, and others between Mo and Xiuzhe. The bandits that were roaming everywhere made every place dangerous. If it wasn't that he was very experienced from hunting Mo embryos, he would have died long ago. Did he finally reach his destination? The dust on his face could not cover this pair of clear and determined eyes. He looked around. This was a very remote mountain valley. It had been very long since someone had come here. The entire valley was overgrown with a kind of purple vine. Shui Yu was extremely careful. He recognized this purple vine. Its small thorns were extremely poisonous and death was almost instantaneous. No wonder he couldn't even find wild beasts here. The thick purple vines sealed this little mountain valley into a desolate patch of death. Excitement appeared on Shui Yu's face, but he quickly calmed down. His rich hunting experience told him that maintaining calm was the only way to survive until the end. He reached out and exposed the blood-colored dragon on his palm. The blood dragon suddenly lit up. The purple vines in the valley moved as though they were alive. Shui Yu looked curiously at this scene. A short while later, a small path appeared in front of him. Shui Yu did not hesitate. He walked deep into the mountain valley along the little path. Behind him, the purple vines moved back together and the little path disappeared. The end of the little path was a hidden cave. Shui Yu took a deep breath and ducked into the mountain cave. Inside the mountain cave, a pool appeared in front of him. The pool was filled with an inky black liquid that gave off a special fragrance. "Dad, grandfather, please be with me," Shui Yui said to himself. Then he jumped into the pool. In the deep of the desert, Fei Lei looked at the ancient and simple sacrificial altar in front of him. This sacrificial altar that had been buried by the sand for thousands of years finally saw the light of day again. The ancient patterns on the sacrificial altar seemed to have an unusual power. They seemed to be alive and were responding to something. Fei lay dazed out as he stared at the sacrificial altar. He had found this sacrificial altar by following the guidance of the blood summons. What is my fate? I'm finally going to learn. Fei lay murmured to himself. His unfocused eyes suddenly became clear and he stepped onto the sacrificial altar without any hesitation. The sacrificial altar suddenly lit up. A deep voice murmured as though it came from far in the past. Faint shadows floated above the sacrificial altar and moved around Fei Lei. Fei Lei's gaze was unfocused and he lost consciousness. The sacrificial altar rumbled as it moved. Inside Zhuo Mo's sea of consciousness, Wei's body suddenly shook slightly. Pu Yao also raised his head, the light of his bloody pupil brightening. The seeds are starting to sprout. An anticipation of waiting for thousands of years echoed in the sea of consciousness. Zhuo Mo sat on the sandstorm insect carpet and looked around curiously. Tens of thousands of little flying worms were woven into a living carpet that supported Zhuo Mo as it flew forward at an astounding speed. Shu Long and the others each rode a great big blue bird. Tang Fei looked at Zhuo Mo, who was looking around like a child, and felt even more puzzled. When she heard the reason that Zhuo Mo could not speed up, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did these people not know there were Mo steeds? Out of consideration for safety, Tang Fei paid for the steeds out of her own wallet without another word. She bought a team of bluebirds for every member of guard camp and almost bought all the bluebirds in the local market. Tang Fei also paid for the sandstorm insect carpet that Zhuo Mo wanted. This amount of mabe was insignificant to Endless City. However, she was very puzzled. These people seemed very powerful and didn't seem to be from a small family, but how could they be so ignorant to not even know about Mo steeds? But unconsciously, Tang Fei's enmity towards Zhuo Mo decreased. In comparison, the celestial plant guards were much better outfitted and summoned their Mo steeds. The sandstorm insect carpet was very large and could hold about 10 or so people. Zhuo Mo, Age, Seng Lianer, Yener, Tao Xing and Tang Fei were all sitting on the sandstorm insect carpet. Seng Lianer took out her tea equipment and started to drink. Tao Xing chucked and also bummed off cups of tea. Tang Fei sat silently at the side. Zhuo Mo studied for a while and quickly grasped the sandstorm insect carpet. These tiny and nimble black insects were very strong and intelligent. They were very interesting. If Chun Yu Chung Shidi was here, he would be very happy. When he thought about this, Zhuo Mo couldn't help but miss everyone. However, he then smiled. He looked at Agui, reached out and rubbed Agui's hair. We are approaching Great Peace City. It soon appear in front of us. Tang Fei's words interrupted Zhuo Mo's actions. Zhuo Mo raised his head and looked forward. He couldn't help but show shock. An unprecedented city appeared in his view. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.